The animal world lives by the brutal laws of competition, hierarchy, subordination, and domination. A struggle for survival where the strongest wins. This is a program they cannot change. In animals, this format ensures the survival of the species. Today, we humans live by the laws of the animal world too. We exploit and take advantage of each other. In our cases, this has not brought us happiness and prosperity. On the contrary, such a consumerist format has put all of humanity on the brink of survival. But a human being is not an animal. He is a spirit that strives for infinite freedom. Unlike animals, we, humans, have the right to choose how to live our lives. We are capable of changing everything. The main problem of humanity today is disunity. United, we can cope with any difficulties and overcome all the crises. What are the prospects that will open up for a united humanity? What is true unity? How to reach the new stage of development of our civilization in an evolutionary way? Watch on November 13, 2022, Kaleidoscope of Facts, the phenomenon of unity. Initiated by participants of Allatra International Public Movement from Slovakia and Czech Republic.
Dobrý deň, priatelia.
Hello, friends. Indeed, the strength of people is in humaneness and unity. Today's episode of Kaleidoscope of Facts is called The Phenomenon of Unity. And it is really the phenomenon because it was created on a volunteer basis by people from all over the world. It is simultaneously interpreted into 17 languages and streamed on a lot of streaming platforms. It's an initiative of people who care about their future and the future of others.
Áno, Katarína. Všetci chceme žiť v bezpečnom svete.
Yes, Katarina. All of us want to live in a safe world with equal opportunities for all. Such a world is our choice, and choices are always followed by action. We can see the action of people aimed at building a new creative world at the forum, held on November 12, 2022. Dushan will tell us more about this event. Dushan, the floor is yours.
Dobrý den. Pochopení podstaty sjednocení je klíčem jeho dosažení.
Hello. Understanding the nature of unification is the key to achieving it. The clearest example of unification in practice is yesterday's unprecedented international online forum, Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity. This forum was prepared and conducted by people from 180 countries. It was broadcast on thousands of media platforms and interpreted simultaneously into 150 languages. As we could see yesterday on the forum, Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity, the climate, unlike humanity, does not wait. Climate disasters are intensifying and synchronizing. With each passing day, we have less and less time left to solve this problem. In order to take the necessary steps for survival, we must first of all agree among ourselves, unite and build a society with a new format of relations, the creative society. And this must be done not in any particular region, but all over the world. In fact, we have only 2 years to inform all of humanity about the Creative Society project and to make a decision whether we want to live like this or not. If a majority of people around the world will choose the Creative Society, then about 4 more relatively stable years are left to implement this project. Unite the best scientists from around the world and find a solution to normalize the climate situation and prevent the death of mankind. We are living in a unique period, the crossroads period, when the fate of civilization depends on the choices each of us makes. This period is characterized by a series of crises. It is interesting that in Chinese, the word crisis consists of two characters. The character Wei means dangerous or risky, and the second element, Ji, has several meanings depending on which character it is paired with. In case, it means change, point of change. That is, all humanity has now come to a certain dangerous point, a line, and only our choice depends on whether this point will be the final one in the history of the Earth, or the transformation will take place and new opportunities and prospects will open before the united humanity. What can our new world be like? I suggest watching the trailer of the international online forum Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity.
I offer you life in a new world. With other values and other opportunities.
Which model will you choose? Dressmaking process completed.
Everything is different there.
This month, a team of scientists who have finally succeeded in developing weather control technology is on the cover of Forbes magazine.
Welcome to your new home. According to the law, you are entitled to 60 square meters per person. This is the minimum housing standard that every person on the planet is now provided with.
This is not a consumerist world that has been devouring us for thousands of years. This is the creative society. Now the consumerist format of society is pushing us towards total destruction. We are on the verge of nuclear war, of world hunger, and of our destruction by natural disasters. But there is another way. The creative society is the world that we can build in just 5 years. Don't miss it. This autumn, November 12th, on all social networks and various media platforms, with interpreting into 150 languages from the main project of humankind. International Forum, Global Crisis. Our survival is in unity. Join in.
My všichni chceme
We
nejen
all want not just to save our lives, but to live in safe, comfortable, secure, and happy society.
právě tato společná
It is this
touha
common desire that unites us in one goal. Each of us is unique. Each has talents and strengths. Each has something to offer. Each of the 8 billion people living on this planet today can contribute to the solution of how to overcome all the crises that we face today. Thus, a united humanity that puts human life first, that begins to protect life first, has the opportunity not only to save the planet and life on it, but at the same time to lay the foundation for a leap forward in the evolutionary growth of an entire united civilization. And therein lies our survival. Our strength is unity. Each of us knows very well in practice what unification means. After all, even to solve some simple problems, we act together with different people every day. It is an integral part of our daily lives. The more united we are, the more effective the result.
Jednota skupiny
The
lidí
unity of a group of people multiplies our common potential. Together we can overcome any difficulties in crisis.
musíme však pochopit
But we need to understand the mechanism by which true unity occurs. And that is what today's Kaleidoscope of Facts, the phenomenon of unity, is about. Thank you for your attention. I pass the floor to the hosts.
Ďakujem, Dušan.
Thank you, Dushan. Indeed, if people want to, they can do a lot by uniting. We were curious to find out what kind of world people really want to live in and what they think about unity. So we conducted a survey. Let's take a look at what people said.
International Social Survey exclusively for the Kaleidoscope of Facts, the phenomenon of unity. What kind of world would you like to live in? What would the world look like in which you, your family and friends would feel happy?
And I would say a world where collaboration is like the main intention and not like just competition, you know? Because I think we live in a very competitive world, and maybe even some governments, they take it as a danger instead of as a solution. You know, instead of cooperating for solution, they think the other government is taking things away from them, and I don't think it's the right attitude, and I think we should modify that in the future.
So that happiness would just reign everywhere. So that, for example, as for my family, we should at least understand each other at all times. And so that friends would be friends without expecting anything from us. Or vice versa, on my part. So that friends would be friends and I would not expect anything from them. I don't know, some advantage. So that people would act according to common ethics.
Well, since I am not living in my own country anymore, I would say that I don't like borders, so I would say I would like a world where everyone can travel freely and explore and get to know new cultures.
And so that our life priorities or values, instead of being focused on money, business or career achievement, we should figure out what's really important in everyone's life.
To really live in a world where such classical values prevail as love, friendship, respect for elders and for a human as such, and to keep one's word. When one gives a word to someone, they should actually keep it so that there is no lie or deception. To really walk firmly on our own path as one feels in one's heart, that's what we should do. We don't want to be ill-treated, so let's not treat others badly either.
More love toward ourselves. We certainly lack love and the understanding that we were once fully human in the earlier times. We were more cohesive. We used to talk to each other more, but now everyone is looking at their phones. No one cares about anyone. Everybody is indifferent to everything. I advise you should start first of all with yourself. Put more love into everything. Smile all the time as you do now. And to notice more people around you.
What do you think unification and unity mean?
It would be great if the world would change so that we could really strive for a better future, so that we could really enjoy the little things, so that we could live in peace and in accordance with the saying, live and let others live. We should appreciate nature and all that comes from it. Try to live in an eco-friendly way. Not to live a consumer life, but to use only what we need for life. And according to this saying, it is possible that the food we eat would not become everything for us. We do not live to eat, but we eat to live.
I suppose it would be ideal if in society a person could feel that people listen to him. If there would be someone who understands this person, someone he can look up to and see an example to follow. And even if a person is not a role model for others, or he does not see eye to eye with those around him, then people should still understand him, and he should have nothing to be ashamed of. A world in which I would be happy would look like a world where everyone loves one another, where there is no prejudice and there would be equality.
Well, we will have to change the way we see that. I think a lot of people are very egoistic in that way, like they think of themselves and they just want to move ahead, and they don't think of the other people. So yeah, we will have to be more empathetic towards other people in order to think of people in general more.
Well, the way it should look is for us to live in peace. It's the world where people would love one another and be honest with each other and be tolerant.
In your opinion, how important is it for people to unite?
Unification of people. It's important to remove prejudice between each other, because if it doesn't happen, people will never unite. But we need to unite and tell each other about our values, goals and fears, and then work on them.
For me, unity and unification means when many people, even though they have different opinions, they will eventually be able to respect each other's opinion, accept each other, find some common ground and just walk in the same direction. That is pulling at one end of the rope.
It is very important that we unite while recognizing that we are all just like unique snowflakes, but even a drop in the sea can create, shall we say, a monsoon. So I think we are one in essence. The question is how we understand it, and that we should actually realize it and to love each other.
This is just a small part of the responses of the people from around the world in a global poll that have been conducted for more than 10 years. If you were to answer these questions for yourself, we are sure the gist would be the same. 99% of the world's population strive for happiness and world peace. However, our daily reality looks different. Let's watch this video.
Divide and rule, the servants of the devil say. Unite and reign, say believers, turning to the one God, the Savior of humanity. Competition, rivalry, a struggle to achieve greater benefits, advantages. Dominance, fight for territory. All of this is inherent in the animal world and allows it to survive. The term competition in biology refers to the negative interaction between organisms that occurs when a resource to survive and reproduce is in limited supply. Competition can take place both within one species and between different species. Interspecific competition has many examples, from dogs fighting over a bone to deer clutching their horns in a fight for a female. Even microscopic bacteria actively compete through various mechanisms, such as using a certain resource needed by competitors, or using metabolic functions to make the external environment uninhabitable for other bacterial species. Conflicts over resources are an often case in the natural world. Competing invasive species such as stink bugs, carp beetles, ash emerald knotweed, garlic mustard, Asian carp, and zebra mussels can eliminate native species and considerably disturb the ecosystem. Scientists estimate that lichens produce more than 500 biochemical compounds that kill microbes, control light, and inhibit plant growth. Biological competition sustains life and strengthens the gene pool. More competitive organisms are more likely to survive and pass on their advantageous genetic traits to offspring. As we can see, in the animal kingdom, competition is driven by natural factors, by the fact that there are not enough basic resources for a species to survive. Why do we, humans, live by animal laws? If in the animal world it helps to survive of the species, what does it lead to in human society? Are we humans lacking something? Yes, we are. We don't have enough food, but we do have it. We don't have enough water, but we do have it. We don't have enough clothes, but we do have them. We have no housing, but we do have it. We don't have enough cars, but we do have them. We don't have enough money, but we do have plenty of it. What lays at the root of artificially created crisis? Why, if we do have everything for everyone to live prosperously, do we still have people in the world dying of hunger and thirst? Animals cannot fully provide for themselves, while we, humans, produce everything ourselves, including money. So what do we lack? The key to the survival of any species is unity and unification in one goal. Now, we humans are on the brink of self-destruction because of fragmentation, greed, and the desire for total power. After all, it is the greed of the few that is at the root of all world crises. But all this is happening with the tacit permission of the majority. The way out is the unification of all humankind to refuse the consumerist format of society and the building of the creative society, a world in which human life is the highest value. Society takes care of each person, while a person takes care of society. All the activities of society are aimed at the comprehensive development of civilization and providing everyone with the necessary benefits. We should not rely on anyone. It is up to each of us to build a great future. The choice is ours, either to be silent and die, or to unite and survive.
Priatelia,
Friends, isn't this absurd? We have everything, and yet we suffer from the lack. And we are used to blaming someone else for this. After all, everyone thinks of himself. I'm a good person, but I can't change anything on my own. Or I could change something, but people around me certainly don't want any change. And this is the manipulation of the consumerist format of society. This format convinces us that it is the other person who is bad. In fact, everyone is good, but a person's behavior is directly influenced by the conditions, that is, by the way, society in which he lives is built. Have you ever found yourself in a situation when external conditions have forced you to make a decision that goes against your conscience? Barbara will tell us more about this subject. I give the floor to her.
Nech sa páči, máš slovo.
Ďakujem, Katka.
Thank you, Katka. Hello. Human beings are shaped by their environment and the conditions in which they live. The conditions in which we live have a direct and active influence on the person himself, his worldview, motives, evaluations, and attitudes. Every human being is dual, which means that they have both a spiritual and an animal nature. In simpler words, both good and bad. Which nature we develop and support, that will grow and dominate in us. Society and its conditions play a great role in what will dominate in us. They contribute to the development of either good or evil in a man. Look at our modern society. The 21st century is the century of information, when every human being is exposed to a lot of information from every side. But what information is offered to us? Take the media, for example. What are they trying to foist upon us through them? One pure negativity, emotions, division everywhere, propaganda of violence, propaganda of not humane but bestial. These are the images they impose on us. Absolutely perverted values. Many people can hardly tell the difference between goodness and evil, between good and bad. Analytical thinking has been replaced by clip thinking. Many people are unable to analyze a problem, find cause and effect. They bluntly accept all information without thinking or asking questions. An image of a passive and irresponsible person, an image of a victim, is formed quite deliberately and actively. After all, this is pure manipulation. They show us a film about a Syrian maniac, and we immediately begin to sympathize with the image. Here are a couple of examples. In the early 80s, a survey was conducted among inmates in US prisons. The results stunned the researchers. It was found out that over 60% of them were openly saying that they had been inspired to commit crimes by TV characters, and 22% had copied the techniques from TV shows. The films were a kind of video tutorial on the professional execution of robberies, kidnappings, murders, etc. Another example. A group of 5-6-year-old children in Oslo were playing Ninja Turtles, and one of the girls was beaten to death. Or another example, young children in New York threw their friend from 12th floor after seeing a similar scene in a film. In early 2009, two 16-year-old high school students were arrested in Tomsk for imitating Hannibal Lecter, the hero from the film The Silence of the Lambs. By their own admission, they wanted to feel what it's like to cut and kill. And there are thousands of such examples. Friends, these examples show very well how mirror neurons work. Now imagine if the media started showing positive examples, promoting moral values, disseminating objective information that unites rather than divides people. How quickly would our society change? It would become fashionable to be kind. But now, unfortunately, it is fashionable to be bad. Take music. After all, music can be an outlet for human beings. It can help them to find harmony, inspire them to be good, or vice versa, can provoke emotions, depression, or sadness. In today's world, there are many bands that use explicitly destructive music, openly and without shame, glorifying violence and Satan. In their lyrics, they call people to torment, to use alcohol and drugs, and even to commit suicide. They impose a certain image on us, which we copy by calling them our idols. Or take signs and symbols. After all, signs are also different. There are positive signs that activate the spiritual component of the human being, the good, the humane, but there are also negative signs that activate the animal component in the human being. That is, everything that is bad, evil, and inhumane. The power of signs is immense. They work on a subconscious level, irrespective to whether the person is aware of it or not. Let us take a closer look at some signs and symbols. The modern consumer format is based on hierarchy. The hierarchy is well illustrated by a triangle pointing upwards. It is the symbol of power of priests and politicians all over the world, over the people. But there is also a symbol of the triangle pointing downwards, which is the symbol of a free and equal society. Another interesting symbol is the swastika, which is depicted clockwise or counterclockwise. The clockwise swastika, the right swastika, is a symbol of creation, development, the supremacy of spirit over matter. The reverse of the swastika, which is directed counterclockwise, symbolizes the destruction and annihilation. Think about who consciously and actively used this sign in history and what is led to in society. I would like to pay special attention to Allatra. Allatra is one of the most powerful ancient spiritual signs. There are two types of it, a black sign on a white background and a white sign on a black background. The black sign on a white background has a positive effect on a person, strengthening the spiritual beginning in him. If a person is on the negative wave, the sign will be neutral in relation to him. The next type is a white sign on a black background. Such a sign protects from the foreign magical influences. Friends, now look carefully around you and look at the signs that surround you at home. Pay attention to what symbols and signs are being actively spread in society today. You can read more about the signs and their influence in the Allatra book. All the above are only a small part of the areas that are part of our lives, but they play a huge role in what will dominate in a person. Friends, 90% of people are shaped by the conditions of the society in which they live. It's 90%. So why is a man turned into a beast in our society? It is because we now live in a consumerist format, which is built on stimulating and supporting exactly the animal part of man. Let's look at children. We are now seeing a trend in society of sexual education of children, starting at the age of 4 or 5. Let's look at what that may have to do with. The public is persuaded that those involved are concerned about early pregnancy and the spread of dangerous venereal diseases and AIDS. Certainly, this is happening to a small extent, but the main purpose of this education is to make children aware of the subject of sex. What is the danger lurking in this? A child's personality is not formed before the secondary search, before the age of 12-14. That is, the child lives more according to the programs of his animal nature, under the control of consciousness, and the themes of violence and sex are interesting to any consciousness. These themes intensify it, or to put it simply, intensify the demon in the man. That is, in this case, there is strengthening of the animal nature. A few more examples. The latest shocking news from Spain, that taboo on pedophilia has fallen at the political level. Minister of the Ministry of Equal Opportunities, Irene Montero, said, "Children should have the right to have sexual relations with whomever they want, as long as they themselves agree." And this is the unprecedented provision. In fact, the legalization of pedophilia was recently legalized by the Spanish Parliament. Another absurdity we see in Africa, where 6-7 years olds are given guns. Canadian soldier, politician, humanist and author Romeo Dallaire, who met child soldiers during the Rwandan genocide, reports that in many African conflict or post-conflict zones, more than 50% of the population is under the age of 18. One of the reasons for using child soldiers is that they are considered expendable, they are easy to replace, and they are not expensive to maintain. They are also more psychologically malleable than many adults who already have more mature personalities. Because younger children in particular have a less developed sense of fear, they may be preferred to adults, as children easily perform the most dangerous tasks without critical reflection. The personality of children And adolescence is still forming, so they are easily manipulated and controlled because they are dependent on adults. And this is normal. After all, as we have already said, until the age of 12, 14, the child's personality is weak, and instead of society protecting it from violence, external negative influences, and showing only good examples, the natural development of the child is deliberately disturbed, and ideas are imposed that if today you feel like a girl, if today you feel like a girl and tomorrow a boy, it is okay. That it is okay for a child to have a weapon in his hands. Do we realize what kind of generation we are raising? In the future, it will be almost impossible for such an individual to free himself from the domination of consciousness. It restricts a person's personal freedom and deprives them a choice. For those who rule this world, it is very beneficial, but not so much for the individual and society, because a man becomes a slave of his demon, and consequently a slave of a system, which chooses the way of life one lives. Because the human being has practically no power to resist his demon, strengthened in childhood, and to get out from under the power of the system. Consider the social experiment conducted by Scott Fraser in 1974 among primary school children, the so-called social Halloween experiment. The experiment consisted of 3 parts, A, B, A. In the first part A, children played together without masks. In the second part B, children wore Halloween costumes, and in the third part they played again without costumes. The result was unexpected. Whereas in parts 1 and 3, the children played naturally and normally. In part 2, there was a high increase of children's aggression, more than double the baseline. When the costumes were then set aside, the level of aggression dropped below the baseline. Scott Fraser thus challenged the idea that people who do bad things are inherently bad people. After all, the same children participated in the experiment, showing aggression only in the part where the costumes were used. That is, the experiment proved that under certain conditions, children can be made to violate social norms. How does this mechanism work? Why do masks and costumes encourage people to violate moral norms and principles? It works not only with children, but also with adults. Anonymity is an opportunity to escape punishment. A person wearing a mask hides behind it. They will not be recognized and therefore cannot be punished. Doing evil without punishment is what the mind of any human strives for. This mechanism also works in crowds where people commit crimes they would never commit alone. In 1968, social psychologists Stanley Milgram, Leonard Bickman, and Lawrence Berkowitz conducted a serious experiment. They asked one participant to stand on a street corner, gazing into an empty sky for a minute. The rare passerby stopped to see what the guy was staring at, but most paid no attention at all. Next time, the psychologist put 5 watchers on the street corner. Now, 4 times as many people stopped to stare into the empty sky. When 15 people took part in the experiment, 45% of passers-by stopped. A further increase in the number of stargazers led to more than 80% of passersby raising their heads to look up at the sky. On the face of it, the experiment merely showed people's willingness to conform. In reality, however, it revealed something else, the concept of social validity. That is, the tendency to accept majority behavior or conventional wisdom as truth, or more simply, to conform to the authority of the crowd. Yes, that's exactly what works. People align themselves with the authority of the crowd by shutting down their own critical thinking. Without questioning, they stupidly repeat after the crowd. And it doesn't matter what the crowd authority does, it can be something negative or positive. Ways to manipulate and control human consciousness have always been and still are. These mechanisms work primarily because we humans are unwilling to take responsibility for our lives and the important decisions on which our future depends. Fear and ignorance are something each of us needs to get rid of. Otherwise, we will always be dependent on someone else's will. It would be all right if those who control us wanted good things for us. But as we can see, this is far from being the case. For power, delegating one's responsibility to another person is a great temptation, and it tends to activate the dark side in a person. The world we live is the result of our irresponsibility and unawareness. But there is always a choice, and it is not too late to change everything and start with the simplest one, changing yourself. That's a very valid question indeed. What are you doing to do that? Friends, isn't it time we formed a society that encourages all that is good and humane in human beings? After all, what is society? Society is me, it is you, society is us. And what it looks like is our collective business card. If there is something wrong in society, then it is my fault. The only question is, what can I do to make the situation change? The answer is simple. Take responsibility and be proactive. When I'm not shifting responsibility to someone else, I'm solely relying on myself and on what I can do. Then I do the best I can, based on my abilities. Now imagine if all people took responsibility in their own hands and started to act, then our power would increase manifold. Everything depends on our choices, and each of us determines the destiny of our society. Thank you for your attention. I give the floor to the hosts.
Thank you, Barbara. Conditions do play a key role in human development. And today, we can all see that our society is destructive. It doesn't facilitate human well-being. Maybe it's time to do something about it. After all, as we've just heard, what is society? It is you and me. And the choices and actions of each of us determine what our society will look like. Even though we have been persuaded for the past 6,000 years that we cannot live without war, without domination and hierarchy, that is supposedly our nature. We know cultures that have been lived peacefully, without using any weapons. For example, Jericho, Göbekli Tepe, Archaim, or the Cucuteni Tripoli culture. All over the world, we find petroglyphs that show the unification of people. Let's watch the video.
Yes, friends. As we can see, peaceful coexistence is not utopia or even fantasy. It is indeed possible. The evidence for peaceful cultures exists. That is, if humanity was able to do this once before, then why do we think it is unrealistic today? After all, we all know what it is like to bring people together for one purpose, such as in work or sports teams. Let's hear some specific examples of unification in practice.
Working together is absolutely essential in the school environment where I work. It is essential for everyone involved. When one student works with a teacher, everyone shares the experience. When the whole class works with the teacher and the teacher works with the students, it's great. But when the entire faculty works together, projects like this one are created, and there is a work environment and a relationship that helps everyone move forward. Ultimately, this brings about meaningful results for everyone.
That we help each other, that we complement each other, that there is no competition or attempts to dominate over someone. And in my experience, I realize more and more that it is very important that our whole team works as a single organism, rather the opposite, because it has been proven time and time again in practice that when we are separated and something is wrong, or some situation is wrong, then nothing works, things get stalled, various problems arise. And conversely, when we cooperate in various ways with each other and between groups and teams, new ideas arise. There arises something that ultimately makes life easier for everyone, and everything happens in a better way. I would say that it is very natural for us as people to find ways to make life better for each other, so that we, the whole society, can live better. No matter how brilliant a professional may be, without nurses, without ward attendants, without barmaids, without those who run tests and so on, the most excellent surgeon turns into nothing. No matter how accomplished you are, it's always about teamwork. If all people are united by one goal, it allows the team as a whole to work cohesively and provide the best possible and most effective treatment for the person. There was a clinical case where we treated a girl. At that time she was 16 years old, and she had a huge tumor, about the size of a soccer ball, and she was denied surgery in other clinics. They were unable to do it, and we did it. We operated with a large group of people: urologists, gynecologists, surgeons, and traumatologists were working together for almost 12 hours. And so, in a well-coordinated, friendly, step-by-step manner, we were able not only to remove this illness from her body, but also to make her fully functional later on.
So often the first thing you see when a fighter is victorious and they get the microphone, the first thing they will do is to thank the whole team, their coaches, their teammates, their training partners, because without them, they wouldn't be where they are. And also, a lot of fighters thank their opponent for giving them the opportunity to showcase their skills and pushing them to the limit, because with your opponent, you make each other grow. So no matter if you won or lost, your one experience richer and it made you into a better fighter for your next fight. So forming a strong team is super important, because there's this saying, if you want to go quick, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. It's easy to put up short-term goals, but I think we need to create a healthy lifestyle. As a fighter, for example, I'm doing this for life, so I need a strong team that helps me, that keeps me motivated, that keeps me healthy, injury-free, and so on, to get to where I want to. And also, a good coach, a good mentor is super important to be successful in not only sports, but really in anything you take on.
My name is Zlatka, and I am symphony orchestra performer. In particular, I play a beautiful musical instrument, the violin. What is extremely important in our work is the idea of unity. There can be 100 people in an orchestra, sometimes more, sometimes less. The idea of unity is very important because if we don't play in unison, then nothing good will happen. The concert will never go well, and we will never communicate the musical experience to the audience. It's very important to hear every performer in the orchestra, no matter what instrument they are playing, whether it's the winds, the strings, or the battery. Everyone is important, because without them there would never be the flow of sound that we want to achieve. So I think this is a very good parallel to the idea that the whole world is talking about now, that we need to unite so that together we can create a beautiful result.
We have only seen a small number of professions that have a combined team experience. We can go on for much longer. Firefighters, airplane crews, construction workers can do a job successfully when there is unification for a common purpose and when there is help and mutual aid. This is a very inspiring example from the world of information technology, the Linux operating system, which is an example of free and open source code software, or the so-called open source. This system is a free alternative to Windows, and today Linux is used as the basis for all Android cell phones, which is actually 85% of the phone market. At the same time, all over the world, 500 largest supercomputers and 39% of servers on the internet run on Linux. The system is still freely available and everyone can not only use it, but also improve it. It is now common practice for large companies to pay developers to improve Linux for their own use, and those improvements are freely available to everyone. This is how engineers and enthusiasts from competing companies work together to improve Linux. People have come together in this way, regardless of nationality or corporate interest, and together they have created a system that no single company could have created alone. In this way, the unification of the group of enthusiasts have changed the software world.
Yes, Robert, that's a great example of how unification works in practice. We can certainly find many such inspiring examples. Everyone inside of themselves gravitates toward that kind of unification and collaboration. And Oliver Enkamp, a mixed martial arts MMA professional from Sweden, will tell us more about it.
I think we have come to this point in evolution by unity, by uniting in communities where everyone can use their own strength to make a bigger impact, because you can't know everything yourself. So by forming communities and being united, we can all help each other with our different experiences, and we have different skills and wisdom, and when we share this, we can create something much bigger together. And it's all formed through love and between each other and for survival, basically. And I think the powers that be do the opposite. They try to separate people, whether it's lockdowns, mandates, or creating like a common enemy for people to unite against, whether it's a different political party, a different ethnicity or religion. And we've seen this through the history where different leaders has tried to unite their people against creating a common enemy just for mass control and surveillance. And I think we need to be aware of this so it doesn't happen again. And the most obvious example is probably World War II. So we don't want to repeat those bad mistakes from history, and that's why we need to learn from it. I think if we want to make this super simple, what do everyone want? Everyone wants roof over their heads, some food in their mouth, and being surrounded by people they love. It's that simple, the basic survival instincts. So can we take care of those first? Then we can focus on economics and all the other problems. So valuing human life, number one, and eliminating all these gaps where some people own more than they can spend during a lifetime, and some people have nothing. If we all could agree on what we really need, which is very simple things for survival, really, then we can start to argue about where to put the money that's over and where to put that energy, because we're not there yet. There's still huge gaps in between countries and societies, and some people live in extreme poverty and some people have way too much money. So I think that would be number one, and I think everyone can agree on that, except for maybe those who has that amount of money, because of course they don't want to lose it. But I mean, it's a tricky question on how to do this practically, because I think money is power in today's society. So the ones with the most influence are probably the ones with the most money. But powers in numbers is also something that does not lie. And I think the few cannot control the many if the many do not comply. And in the past few years, especially, we have seen this with all these restrictions of our freedom in different countries. There has been freedom of movement in lockdowns, and countries that we thought were democracies, like Australia and Canada, for example, they had extreme protests for freedom going on when their freedom got taken away from them. But there has been some significant changes to that after people have come together with a common goal and protested. So again, powers in numbers don't lie. Nobody can create this difference and find solutions for the world's problems themselves, but everyone can do something, and together we can become a very strong force.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for your very inspiring words. Now let's listen to the experience of an astronaut who was on an international space station.
Each crew member must have a deep inner motivation to solve the task set before the crew. Both we and our foreign colleagues call this task fulfillment of the flight program. This is probably the first thing. The second one is undoubtedly communication skills and a psychological attitude for successful teamwork that go together with the understanding that not only you can be in a bad mood, not only you can get up on the wrong side of the bed, or find out that your son got a bad grade at school, but the same, absolutely the same circumstances apply to your colleagues, and it doesn't matter what country they come from. Everyone has their own pet peeves, as we say, and you have to take them into account when communicating. Actually, we have a wonderful document called the Code of Conduct for International Space Station Crews. The document recommends, in fact, quite strongly recommends following certain rules. In particular, it says that it is not recommended, for example, to discuss religious or political topics with our foreign colleagues. Of course, foreign colleagues are meant, and in general, to discuss all those topics that may disturb the state of equilibrium on board. And this is an individual thing. As I said before, everyone has his own pet peeves. For example, some cannot stand soccer, others can't stand cats. I'm just imagining it. Hence, all of these topics, of course, cannot be touched upon in personal communication with each other. In addition, of course, there is an understanding that working in space, we have to trust each other so much that at the right moment, if everything goes wrong, if an emergency happens, we can turn our backs to each other, so to say, and be sure that the person you have behind your back will not only do his job, but will also be there to back you up. And without this understanding, without this feeling, it is simply impossible to fly into space, and in fact, participate in any extreme events of such kind, which a spaceflight actually is. We understand all this and try to stick to these rules. But I want to point out that actually, I believe these rules work very well not only in space, but also on Earth, in large teams, especially when there is a difficult emotional environment, let's say deep isolation or large external threats that can threaten the life or health of your colleagues. I believe these rules apply everywhere, and following them, I think, is the key to any successful work, not just in space. The most important thing is to remember that you live not alone, and the principle of after me, the deluge, can lead to nothing but disaster, not only for you, but also for your children, and in fact for everyone around you. So when you live in society, you must understand that you are responsible to society, to the team, to those people who you find yourself with. And of course, it should be understood that we must be very careful with one another and not rock the boat we are all sailing in together. Because if we rock it too much, figuratively speaking, we will actually capsize it, and then it will be very bad for everyone who is in our boat. You know, after the first flight, I realized that if the G20 summits were held in space, on board of the International Space Station, I think everyone would very quickly agree on all the issues that need to be settled, resolved, and any kind of compromise would be found. First of all, people really need to realize that our planet is small and fragile. It's not a declaration, it's not some nice words. It really is so. You realize this very quickly when you look at our planet from a height of at least 400 kilometers. This is where our International Space Station is. By and large, we're all in the same boat on Earth. It's very small. In fact, our planet is extremely small and fragile. And by the way, you can see very well from above how vulnerable it is to all kinds of natural disasters. There are some traces left on the surface of the planet, on dry land, at sea. And it's sad to understand, sad to see that someone wants to, shall we say, add their own complications to our planetary life. There is only one boat so far. We haven't yet gotten to other boats, where if something happens, we could wait out cataclysms taking place on our home planet. I think simply endless prospects would open up for human civilization in our understanding, at least for the time being, because the resources would be spent not on national security of each country, but on accelerating technological progress of our civilization on Earth, and of course, advancement of manned space exploration. I am sure that our cosmonautics would have such a speed of development that we probably would have been on the Moon, on Mars, and perhaps on other planets long ago. And I am sure that the knowledge we will get, we would have got, or in this case, will get in the future, will help us make our lives even more comfortable, safer, and perfect in all aspects.
Thank you, Andrei Ivanovich, for your understanding and words based on your own experience. Indeed, our planet is like a fragile ship floating in space, and every change in it affects all of us. Our planet is a living organism. Everything is interconnected, and we need to understand that we humans are also interconnected.
Yes, consumer society makes us selfish, caring only about our own well-being, at most about the well-being of our families. We somehow naturally accept that there is war, hunger, violence, and human suffering somewhere. We are used to saying, the main thing is that at home everything is fine. After all, wars, hunger, violence have always been and always will be. Friends, but let's stop. Is this really the case? All the people who survived the climatic cataclysms managed to find the humanity to help each other, at a time when the state as such failed to do so. This gives us a great hope that humanity is not yet extinct. Let's watch the specific eyewitness accounts that were there.
People are pouring out with love. Like, what can I do? What can I do? I will be there. I had a girl drive all the way from Lexington, which is almost 2 hours from where I live, just to drop off clothes to a girl that lives here in Bowling Green. People are coming together. That is the positive thing. You can really, really, really feel the love. I'm not going to say this happened for a reason. Nobody deserved to lose anything, but there is really something beautiful coming out of it. People are really, combining forces and just coming together, and it's really, really a beautiful sight to see. People are, getting translators for the people who need help. We're making sure that people of all different ethnicities have what they need.
Some of the residents were talking about how the nurses in there, when that tornado hit, threw their own bodies on top of them to protect them from debris. So they're shielding them with their own bodies, which is this is a crazy story to think about, just crazy to think about. And I just know everybody who showed up there was just trying to help in every way they could. I wouldn't be surprised if there was over 100, 150 people that were just there to help. Really, it was instantly. It was no matter what was going on in anybody's lives at that moment, it was like humanity just came together to make sure everybody was okay.
A colleague of mine who is also a journalist, and his brother was affected by the flood, he wrote an article on his social media account saying that I was sad to see the disaster, but when I saw the reaction of people, I saw hundreds of young people with cranes. They had cranes, and they brought their vehicles to help people remove heavy objects and to just open the path for rescue teams. I saw hundreds of people who were bringing hot meals for the people who were affected. I saw many people who were bringing extra utilities that they have at home to provide this to the families.
I went to a Punjab retail store in Surrey, British Columbia, and that gentleman graciously just told us to take what we wanted: 50 blankets, 50 sweaters, and hundreds of socks, and so on. I mean, the people were very kind.
Of course, like when this disaster hit, people within the areas helped each other, especially in searching for the lives that had been lost in the floods. They were the ones who started excavating until when the government got to know and they brought some tractors to help remove the large volumes of sand and stones. But people have been so helpful to their fellow friends, because even at the moment, those whose houses were destroyed have not been they have not got other new houses, so they are staying in the relatives' houses. So I think they have been at the forefront in all of this.
For me, it was really a surprise. I thought it would not be so much, but it really was amazing. You saw it in the first few days and couldn't believe it, that people are so good and how they got together. There were one batch of people, one community with each other, regardless of the government, no matter what. They just held hands and said, "Come on, you can, come on and come on. You need to pick up your clothes from the house, come on, I will take you, let's go." It was impressive. People stopped working, including me, because in the early days I helped a lot. It was very difficult for people. But it also has positive aspects, for example, those people who stayed, who helped each other and were like a support. Also with the donations that I told you about, that people brought when they said stock. They decided to create a stock at some places that were set up as a stock. They made some very big places that are like warehouses, where people can go and say, "Look, I don't have food today. Look, I need clothes." And now they can go and look for them. It really was incredible. It was unique.
As far as Colorado goes, it's incredible people from all around the world that I think are pitching in for us. I know that there is, I can't think of the exact name. I'm currently not in Colorado right now, but they have local restaurants all around the community that families can come in and either pick up food to go to take home to their families, or if they want a night, to dine in, that they can have that as well, for free. And that might sound like it's not really a lot, but I think for a lot of us, it's a lot to not have to worry about what we're going to do for dinner or lunch.
Filipinos are very, when there's a calamity or any problems, Filipinos help each other. So the government officials, even the citizens, everyone, like, they help each other. They just give a helping hands, like giving the food, even a small amount of money, food, or sharing anything, whatever they have, they could offer. It's just like, we call it bayanihan, like helping one another. And that's how Filipinos survive.
Ako sme videli, ľudskosť je nám všetkým
As we have
prirodzená.
seen, humaneness is natural for all of us. The time has come to realize that we are human beings, not animals. These cataclysms were local, but there are global cataclysms coming quickly. And to prepare for them, we must act now and unite. The sooner we unite, the better our chances of survival.
Odpovedzte si úprimne.
Answer yourself honestly. Are you ready to leave your home and seek a new home? Or are you ready to accept people who have had to leave their homes? When we realize that the highest value is human life, the question, do I have to help someone? Will someone help me? Will no longer be a question.
In the report on the problems of consequences of global climate change on Earth, effective ways to solve these problems, which was published in 2014 at allatra.science, we read, if people from different countries start to unite independently to address various issues, regardless of nationality, religious beliefs, social or other status, outside of political and priestly systems, which are aimed at dividing people, then in a short space of time it is quite realistic to build a global society of creation, the basis of which will be universal spiritual and moral values. We are all human beings, and all of us have the same place of living, the Earth, one nationality, the humankind, one common value, life, thanks to which we can worthily attain self-fulfillment and the meaning of our existence in the highest spiritual and moral aspect.
As was said in yesterday's forum, our planet is experiencing a change of cycle. This is evidenced by changes not only in space, on the surface of our planet, but also in its core. Thanks to all the honest scientists who, despite the system's efforts to hide the truth and profit from lies, speak the truth out loud. Thanks to their courage, we have a chance to understand the true causes of climate change and find a way to survive. At yesterday's forum, we were given detailed information about the cycle of change. And according to the mathematical model that was published, we have a more or less peaceful 6 years. And if we do nothing, humanity will cease to exist in 2036. We invite anyone who wants to learn more about climate change to watch the next 29th episode of Kaleidoscope of Facts, The Earth's Core. How can humanity survive? Let's watch the trailer together.
The core, the heart of our planet. Its movement creates the conditions for life on Earth. But every 12,000 years, the planet's core fails. It's hard to imagine that such a massive dynamo as the core could fail. But now, the world's scientists are watching with horror what's happening in the bowels of the Earth. The red hot magma, awakened by the vibrations of the core, is bursting to the surface. The real nuclear threat. What is it actually? What affects our core every 12,000 years? What do changes in the magnetic field cause? What happened to the atmosphere of Mars? And will it happen to the Earth? Will the moon fall to Earth? Can the destruction of the planet's core be stopped? Will we be the last people living on Earth? It's time to bring the truth back to people. On December 13, 2022, watch this and much more in the Kaleidoscope of Facts. Earth's core, how can humanity survive? Initiated by participants of Allatra International Public Movement from Israel and Australia.
Let us return to the topic of today's Kaleidoscope of Facts, the phenomenon of unity, which, thanks to a friendly team of simultaneous interpreters, is broadcast in 17 languages on many media platforms. We also know many examples of humanity uniting in modern history. However, we offer here that one person can do nothing. So let's look at the example of Mahatma Gandhi. At a time when there was no information technology, he was able to unite India.
India defeated the British Empire in the 1940s and freed itself from colonial oppression. Just think, what resources and opportunities did India have compared to the British Empire? Who united India? One man. But he could not have done it without the support of the people, because the people's choice is the most important thing. Let's watch the video and learn more about it.
On August 15, 1947, British India was granted independence. The main leader of the Indian independence movement was Mahatma Gandhi. His principle is non-violence. The philosophy of non-violent struggle, Satyagraha, showed its incredible effectiveness. After all, the economic and military power of the British Empire greatly exceeded the capabilities of India. So how did the Hindus manage to defend their rights to independence? First of all, Gandhi turned to ordinary people who bore all the hardships of life. He offered them to defend their rights within the framework of the law in an exclusively peaceful way. His ideas turned out to be realized as ordinary people in their greater mass supported him. Gandhi called for a campaign of civil disobedience, refusal to cooperate with the British authorities, from buying British goods, paying taxes to the treasury. He constantly focused people's attention on the fact that the British came to India as merchants on the ships of the East India Company to earn money, and he was sure that the British would leave as soon as it became unprofitable for them to stay in India. Mahatma tried to give a wide public response to each of his actions. Gandhi dreamed of a country of equal happy people, living without frills, where handicraft production would be the main thing. The symbol of his economic program became a hand-spinning wheel on which Mahatma himself worked daily. He believed that such a spinning wheel would allow each family to earn money for rice and cakes and save India from unemployment. Gandhi taught that the lack of technological progress is not proof of the inferiority of a nation at all. It's not that we didn't know how to invent machines, but our ancestors knew that if we went down this path, we would turn into slaves and lose morale. After due consideration, they decided that we should only do what we can do with our hands and feet, and don't depend on anyone. They saw that the swords of kings lose to the sword of morality, and therefore they placed earthly kings below sages and ascetics. As a result of these peaceful protests and the boycott of the purchase of British goods, the English crown lost the profits for which it had colonized India. Having lost their profit, the colonists decided to leave India. This showed their exclusive consumerist attitude to the country. Rushing to get rid of these territories, the British leadership decided to divide British India into two countries. During the drawing of the border, many important factors were not noticed. First of all, the wish of the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League was not taken into account, and although it was almost impossible to please both, the mistakes during the demarcation were too gross. The question arises, why the British diplomats who had such colossal experience in negotiating and knowledge of the peculiarities of the local mentality did not take into account these nuances? Or was it all done deliberately? Thus, the territories inhabited by Hindus and Buddhists went to Pakistan, whereas India received Muslim regions under its subjugation. In addition, the numerous Sikhs, who found themselves on both sides of the barricades, demanded the creation of their own independent state. After the approval of the borders in the newly created countries, large migrations began. People relentlessly migrated from one state to another, and it seemed that in this way the conflict would dry up. However, in Kashmir, the situation only worsened. The vast majority of the population here were Muslims. At the same time, the Maharaja was a Hindu. The independence of British India turned into the disintegration of the country into India and Pakistan on religious grounds, and the Indo-Muslim massacre. Millions of people rushed in different directions, fearing to be in a foreign state. According to various sources, more than 500,000 people died. Many millions were injured, raped, and left homeless. No country in modern history has known such a bloody collapse. Gandhi was horrified. Everything that he believed in was crumbling before his eyes. The imaginary India of his dreams turned out to be a myth. Everyone immediately forgot about non-resistance. Monstrous cruelty reigned in the streets. The authorities of the new country had to ask the departing British for soldiers to help deal with the unrest. Gandhi refused to come to the independence ceremony. When at the midnight of August 15, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, raised the flag of independent India in Delhi, Gandhi traveled to the country trying to stop the violence, then went out on a hunger strike until the madness is over. His peacekeeping activities irritated the radicals. When Gandhi's entourage convinced him to start eating, he began to go out to the people who usually stood at his house. On January 30, 1948, Mahatma, as usual, went out to the crowd. Then a man quickly approached him and fired 3 times at point-blank range. The killer, named Nathuram Godse, turned out to be a member of the Hindu group, Hindu Mahasabha. India would begin to develop large-scale industrial production, forgetting about the hand-spinning wheel. It would create an atomic bomb which Gandhi considered the weapon of hell. It could not even occur to him that the Indians would begin to develop it. Social stratification and caste prejudices have not disappeared. There is no Sarvodaya in India. Mahatma remained statues in the squares, pages of history books, Of course, Gandhi's role in the national liberation movement is huge, but he could not have done anything without the huge support of people. Those who do not know their history are doomed to relive it again. So what lessons can we learn from these events? Victory over the consumerist format of society is possible only when the majority of people want to live in the creative society. This cannot be done in one single country because all countries are interconnected, politically and economically. Gandhi's mistake was that he concentrated his activities within the country and did not take into account the possibilities of large geopolitical players supporting the consumerist format of society. If we want to change the format of society, then we should do it all over the world, and people themselves should do it. This should happen in stages and exclusively peacefully. It is also important to understand that the building of the creative society does not imply the abandonment of technologies and observance of asceticism. Vice versa. The creative society is a society of modern advanced technologies, abundance for each and everyone. A society of equal rights and opportunities, where the main value is human life. We can make this choice. After all, the right to choose is a sacred right given to every person. It must be remembered that all challenges in society begin primarily with the person themselves and their choice. And everyone makes it, because turning away from the problem and not making a choice is also a choice. Solving the issue for one country is good, but now all of humanity has one enemy, the consumerist format of society. According to all religious traditions, now all of us, people, are at the crossroads, at a time of global choice for a human and all humankind, and both their life and the life of all humankind depend on the choice of each. What should be done? Decide for yourself what kind of world you want to live in. The time for the unification of humankind has come.
So what lessons can we learn from the example of India? Gandhi tried to do a great thing, but as it turned out, positive changes cannot be achieved individually in just one country, because all countries are politically and economically interconnected. Gandhi's mistake was to focus only within his own country and not to consider the possibilities of major geopolitical players supporting a consumerist format of society.
Yes, the system is always trying to suppress such flashes of change. They might improve people's lives. One of the characteristics of the consumerist format is the shifting of responsibility to others. And this manifests itself in the fact that we expect politicians to improve our lives, or scientists to solve the climate crisis. And yet we ourselves are capable of finding an effective solution to any problem or crisis we face. This is confirmed by studies examining the wisdom of crowds effect, in which a group of like-minded people achieves faster and more accurate results than a narrow group of specialized experts. And the more diverse and larger the group, the better results it can achieve. Jan will tell us about this. Jan, I give you the floor.
Děkuji, Kataríno. Dnešnímu dni byla provedena
Thank
řada
you,
studií
Katerina.
a experimentů,
It was an experiment today that have been enough studies and experiments confirming that the collective decisions is more correct and closer to the exact value. Everyone knows the Galton experiment, in which visitors to a fair were asked to estimate the weight of a ball. It turned out that the most accurate estimate was the average, formed on the basis of the opinions of all the respondents. Another example of a collective decision: in 1968, the submarine Scorpion disappeared from radar screens. The task to find it was almost hopeless, because the radius of the search was 32 kilometers. But a naval officer named John Crowell had an idea. First, he created a series of scenarios, versions of what might have happened to the scorpion. Then he assembled a group of people with a wide range of backgrounds, including mathematicians, submarine specialists, and seal riggers, and asked each of them to estimate the probability of each of his scenarios. In the end, the boat was found 200 meters from the point indicated by the Kramers group. In both examples, the participants' opinions were independent of each other. Independence is important to sound decisions making for two reasons. First, it sieved out the errors that inevitably occur in individual decision-making. Second, independent participants will be based on truly diverse information rather than the same but differently worded information. Scott Page, a political scientist at the University of Michigan, conducted experiments demonstrating the benefits of heterogeneity. Page formed several groups of 10 to 20 decision-making agents. Each agent had an individual set of skills. The groups were asked to solve a relatively confusing problem. Differences in the success rate of the decisions made proved to be significant. Investigating their causes, Page found that a group of a few competent agents and a few novices always performed better than a group of the most competent agents. Page proved that the heterogeneity in the competition of the group increases its effectiveness in solving any problem. According to theorist of organizational behavior, James Gardner Marsh, the reason is that the groups consisting of people too much alike find it difficult to assimilate new, unconventional information. And therefore, a kind of stagnation occurs. Members of a homogeneous group succeed in activities that are familiar to all of them, but lose out on the collective ability to explore alternatives. A group of participants who are not similar to each other will make better and more viable predictions, make wiser decisions. Not even the most experienced decision maker will be able to make such a decision. There are many absurd predictions in history that have come from mouths of professionals. For example, Harry Werner, one of the founders of Warner Brothers, announced in 1927, in the era of silent movies, what fool would want to listen of what an actor says? Thomas Watson of IBM 1943 prophesied, I believe the world market needs about 5 computers. Such missteps can be just amusing misunderstanding and justified by the fact that stupidity is forgivable to anyone. But what cannot be written off is the murderous inefficiency of the most experts in decision-making. James Shanto, one of the leading researchers in the US on the nature of professional expertise, noted that in many cases experts generate poor decisions. In his writing, Shanto reports on a series of studies. According to them, the judgment of several professionals in the same field were often completely contradictory, and the decisions of individual experts run counter to the collective opinion of the group consisting of the most competent individuals. Experts also not strong in the in what sociologists will call collaborating decisions. The collaboration of these decisions allow us to reliably judge how right they are. And this is professionals resemble ordinary people. They tend to greatly overestimate their rightness. A study of overconfidence by economist Terence Gordon found that doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers, entrepreneurs, investors, literally everyone believed they knew more than they actually did. No matter how knowledgeable and experienced a professional may be, his or her advice and predictions should always be compared with their opinions for the best results. This ensures that a field of potential solutions is grand, because the larger the group, the more reliable the collective judgment. Trying to find the one person who has all the answers is a waste of time. To make an analogy, it's like a bee colony that sends out many scouts in the hope that one of them will find the shortest route to the flower meadow. It's more efficient than trying to guess at random the best route to the flower field, or even choosing the best scout and sending them out to find it. Researcher Robert Boyd and Peter J. Richardson, pioneers in the study of social norm transmission, in their research tried to figure out exactly how groups came to collectively useful decisions. Boyd and Richardson found that the most winning option for all of is one in which a significant number of participants imitate others, but provided is a reasonable imitation. But if people follow others without regard to objective circumstances, the welfare of the group fails, meaning blind copying is always destructive. The blind copying is when explained in an ant colony. The various ants fight back from the colony. Having lost their orientation in space, the ants follow a simple rule. Each ant follows the ant ahead of itself. Each ant's every move depends on the behavior of its fellow ants, and the ant is incapable of acting independently. As a rule, ants follow each other in a circle until they all die. This phenomenon is biologically called ant circles or carousel of death. And thank you for your attention. Suggest you to watch a fragment of the video participation with Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Everything is fractal in nature. Because if we recall system science, they say that when any organisms or ecosystems or communities of organisms reach some critical point of instability, something happens to them.
At the peak of their development, naturally,
yes, such a moment.
A point of instability is formed. Yes.
Yes, and it is the moment of truth when a decision is made. Either a species transforms or it will be destroyed. So looking...
The bifurcation point, yes.
Yes.
Humanity has really approached this point, and we all feel this already. We observe it, and there is no time for jokes anymore. We see that indeed, people in the world are as of going crazy. Plus the climate and everything else in the world, the pandemic, all of these things are one on top of the other, and it is really manifesting itself now.
Critical instability in society, yes.
Absolutely.
Therefore, one could say...
And something has to be done. And guys, why do bad things if we can do good things?
Ďakujem, Igor Michailovič. Úplne s vami súhlasím.
Thank you, Igor Mikhailovich. We completely agree with you.
A dobro robí jeden človek. Je to skvelé.
It's also very important that, as we heard before,
Pojem zjednotenie je v súčasnosti veľmi populárny. Počujeme ho od svetových lídrov, náboženských predstaviteľov, politikov. Veď iná cesta ako zjednotenie v tomto bode vývoja ľudstva neexistuje. Ide však o to, na akom základe toto zjednotenie zrealizujeme. Všetci ste počuli o novom svetovom poriadku a tvorivá spoločnosť sa často prirovnáva k novému svetovému poriadku. Poďme
is always accompanied to the new world order.
Pretože ide o kardinálny rozdiel v rozvoji a budúcnosti ľudstva. Ako sme z predchádzajúceho videa a od Jana už počuli, nachádzame sa v bode bifurkácie.
As we have heard of Jan, as we have heard from the previous video and from the speaker, we are at a bifurcation point. A point where the further development of events depend on our choices. The world elites have started to use loud phrases about unification. This unification is dictated from above and certainly leads to the creation of a single world government. We are being persuaded that it will benefit us all. They promise that it will put an end to all wars, that there will be unconditional basis income, that some new technology will be introduced. And do you believe that? Do you believe that these people want good for all mankind? If it was so, they, with their financial and political power, would have solved all crises and problems long ago. But we see that it's not happening. Today about 20,000 people will still dying every day from such a basic problem as hunger. So can we count on their goodwill? No. Especially because the most important thing is not going to change. Power will still be concentrated in the hands of a small group of people. We have been living in such a format for 6,000 years, and we see what it has led to. The elites replaced one another, but nothing changes for the common people. The only thing that is being proposed now is to reduce our population even further. You may have noticed that recently in the media there has been an increasing number of opinions of various experts that in the name of sustainable development, in the name of saving the planet and ecosystems, it is necessary to reduce the population of the Earth, or that is all the problems of humanity would be solved if the population of the planet were the level it was 500 years ago. By the way, 500 years ago, there were 500 million people living on Earth. Such an idea is being heard more and more often from academicians, politicians, or philanthropists. Ted Turner, founder of the news agency CNN, believed that a 95% decline from present level of a total world population would be ideal. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, also supported the idea. In an interview he said, "In the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus, to contribute something to solving overpopulation." The New World Order declares that a reduction in population to 500 million is inevitable. Do we even understand that what this means in practice? It means that the entire population of the planet Earth, they plan to keep only as many people alive as half of the current population of India. Where is a guarantee that you and your family will turn out to be the chosen ones? And will you really be the chosen ones? Do you have any idea what kind of life awaits you in this cause? Let's figure out what the decline of the population really means. The smaller the number of people, the easier it's to control them. For the elites, the instrument of covert control is the dark forces. Few people realize that politics and magic always go hand in hand. And in today's world, it's unrealistic to manipulate as many people as 8 billion. All of the dark forces do use children sacrifices to replenish their powers. Even there is no longer enough for them. For a deeper understanding of the subject, we recommend watching the 27th episode of Kaleidoscope of Facts, How Not to Go to Hell. What we really don't realize is that the more numerous we are, the better it is for us. Did you know that there is a direct correlation between population growth and the new technological breakthroughs? Let's watch a video.
They say there are too many of us. They make epidemics, wars, famine to reduce the population of the earth. Why is the growth of the human population not profitable for the elite? What happens every time when the global population significantly increases? What benefit do we get when there are many of us? Let's look at how the increase of the Earth's population is related to the emergence of new technologies. With every new billion, there is a technological breakthrough, and a great amount of scientific discoveries emerge. There is a certain regularity. The closer we get to our time, the more we deepen our knowledge for both the micro and macrocosm. 1,000 years ago, there were 275 million of us. The field of observation of people was limited by their senses. At the end of the 16th century, when the Earth's population grew to 500 million, the microscope was invented, then the telescope was invented, and our field of observation and knowledge began to expand. From the middle of the 18th century, the population began to grow rapidly. The first industrial revolution took place. There was a mass transition from manual labor to machine one, a transition from agrarian economy to industrial production. The steam engine and steam locomotive were invented. Railroads, bridges, canals, and waterworks were built. the first balloon flight was done. At the end of the 19th century, there were 1.5 billion of us, which is when the second industrial revolution took place. New industries emerged. Electricity industry, chemical, oil and petrochemical industries, automobile production, the phonograph and microphone, incandescent lamp, telephone, telegraph, radio, and internal combustion engine were invented, and the first airplane flight took place. In 1891, Nikola Tesla began practical work on obtaining free energy from ether and designed a resonant transformer, Tesla transformer. 1900 is the year when quantum physics was born, and science began to be intensely held back. Why? First, the further development of etheric technologies would inevitably lead to the fact that free energy would become publicly available. Second, recognizing the presence of ether led to understanding of the more complex structure of the world, the multidimensionality of the universe, and its artificial origin. This, in turn, would be a scientific proof of the existence of the spiritual world. Such perspectives for development went against the plans of the elite. What then to make money on, and how to keep people under control. That's why the topic of ether was banned. The paid scientists appeared, who deliberately did not allow the progress of discoveries to happen, and science lost the opportunity for its further qualitative development. 1927. There are 2 billion of us. In the 30s, nuclear medicine, the radio telescope, the electron microscope, television, the air jet engine appeared. In the 40s, the nuclear bomb, the first computer, the microwave, the transistor, fiber optics, the hard drive appeared. In 1957, the first artificial Earth satellite was launched. 1960. There are 3 billion of us. In 1961, a human flew into space for the first time. Communication satellites, the optical disc, the orbiting telescope, the touchscreen, and the cell phone were invented at this stage. The laws of physics continue to work despite all efforts of the world elite to slow down the development of science. But they didn't rush to give many developments to people. Just imagine, the microprocessor was invented back in 1971, the touchscreen in 1972, the first cell phone in 1979. 1974. There are 4 billion of us. After that, GPS navigation, the personal computer, the laser disc player, the laptop, the artificial heart, the flash drive, and the internet appeared. Information and communication technologies were actively being developed to manipulate people. Technologies aimed at increasing consumption were also being developed intensively. Over the past 50 years, the number of Earth's population has doubled. To date, there are 8.25 billion of us. We have nanotechnology, 3D printed organs, the air display, and self-healing coatings. Robotic surgeons are performing successful surgeries. On October 11, 2022, artificial intelligence made a speech in the House of Lords in the UK. At the same time, all of humanity is experiencing a number of serious crises: economic, political, social, ecological, and climatic. The ideologies of transhumanism offer their own way to solve these problems, as they believe the only one. A radical reduction of the world population to 500 million. This is being done not to solve the crisis. They can be solved effectively right now. In this case, it will be simpler for the elite to control us. But do we want that? Have we been asked? Are you ready to fall under this reduction for fact that someone will get unlimited power? To date, a threat of total destruction by climate catastrophes are looming over us. In the entire history of the Earth, we have never been so close to the closure of the humanity project. Today, we need a different format of society and the unification of the entire scientific potential of humanity. Thanks to modern communication technologies, we can easily communicate with each other, exchange experience and ideas. And we must use this opportunity. A platform for unification of the entire scientific potential already exists, but it can be fully realized only in the creative society. After all, in the current consumerist format, the best of minds stay in secret laboratories and work for the military industry. They invent means to kill us faster and more effectively. Instead of thinking about how to preserve and multiply lives, there is less and less time before the X hour, but we still have a great chance to unite and build the creative society. If we do this, great perspectives and new horizons of knowledge will open before us. Not only will we be able to turn our Earth into a blooming garden, but we will also be able to begin exploring other planets. In that case, even 50 billion people will not be enough.
Indeed, unification within the creative society is diametrically opposed to the way the New World Order is already following today. As in the creative society, human life is the most important thing, and therefore there can be no question of any reduction in the number of people. On the contrary, with the introduction of new technologies, new opportunities will open up for the development of civilization, even to the level of the settlement of other planets. There are already technologies in place to improve everybody's life and health. All that is left is to build a creative society, to make them available to everyone. In the creative society, people are guaranteed an unconditional income that will fully provide for all human needs, including healthcare and education, because a person has an absolute right to this. The only condition that he is born, power as such will not exist in the creative society. Every person will participate in the governance of the society. If you want to learn more about the benefits of the creative society and understand that its building is absolutely real, watch the international online forum, Global Crisis. Our survival is in unity.
Áno.
Katerina, you have the floor.
Yes, Robert, I wish we could live in the creative society. As we have heard before, the condition for creative society is for people to unite in one purpose. For such positive change to take place, it must be a global unification throughout the world. We know that the power of our attention shapes reality. The consumer format system is powerful precisely because we constantly feed it with our attention. This is how a powerful egregore is created. Monica will tell us more about the egregore and how it works. Monica, you have the floor.
Děkuji, Kataríno. Každá skupina má svůj vlastní energetický informační prostor, který určitým způsobem působí na lidi.
Thank you, Katarina. Every group has its own energy and information space that has a certain influence on people. That is why, and the same person may behave differently while being in different groups. These formations are called egregores. An egregore is an energy informational object in the eternal world connected with certain ideas, desires, and aspirations of people. To understand how it is formed, let us consider what human consciousness is. Consciousness is a field structure that is outside of human body and has a wave nature. Uniting on one goal, attuned to one frequency, consciousnesses of individuals enter into resonance. A single mechanism is formed. It's a collective mind or egregore. The intellectual capacity of the collective mind is many times greater than the sum of the individual minds of the collective members. The same can be seen in the animal kingdom of ants, bees, fish, and other animals. One individual is helpless on its own, but when they are all together, they can solve the most complex problems. And so it is in human society. We learned from the previous speaker that a collective is more effective at solving problems than one individual. But in such a collective, certain conditions must be observed. Diversity of all participants, their independence, self-sufficiency and individuality, lack of authority, equality of participants, absence of criticism, mutual respect and trust. An egregore needs to not only information, but also energy to exist. Vladimir Dmitrievich Popov, philosopher, social psychologist, doctor of philosophy, professor, wrote in his publication, Spiritual Information, Nature and Force of the Egregore, that an egregore is a certain body of information connected with some phenomenon. But when you start observing this manifestation, you may note that it is formed not only due to embedded information, but also with a help of energy. This energy, due to which the egregore exists, is the human attention, the most valuable currency in the universe. In the video with participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, Truth and Tears, it was said that we have the power of attention, the power which forms the information. Information, in turn, forms what we call energy, and energy forms matter. The more people pay attention to a certain egregore, the faster it forms, and the longer time people give their resource attention, the more stable the egregore is. And when a critical mass is reached, the egregore, once it has gained enough strength and power, begins to give the energy and information and draw in new people. But it always receives more energy than it gives out. These are many egregores. There are many egregores, but they can be divided into two main groups by ideas. These ideas are either destructive or creative in nature. Let us remind that a human has a dual nature, the spiritual component and the animal component, and the right to choose which of them to develop. And only a person decides whom to serve, the force of good or the forces of evil. This choice determines the egregore that is formed, a creative egregore that serves all humanity, or destructive, consumerist, which uses a person in its own interests. Unfortunately, to date, an egregore of consumerist format of society has gained strength. In this format, we're always lacking something, a place in public transport, a better partner, or territory. This leads to conflicts and constant wars. The deep wisdom is that no one side wins a war, but there are always those who are behind the formation of these destructive processes, gaining financial and mental energetic benefits. Over the last 6,000 years of conflicts and wars, people have led off the egregore to the consumerist format of society with their energy so much that it is now dominant and leads humanity to self-destruction. But the people themselves can form another egregore, a creative egregore, where all the acute problems will be solved in the shortest time possible. Not a single event in the world happens by chance. Behind every action, there is one of the forces, good or evil. The real laws of this world are immutable, especially when it comes to people's right to choose. The forces of evil and good can only offer people certain ideas. What idea will be chosen by people themselves, that will be implemented. The importance of people's choice is concealed from them, but one should understand that everything starts with a human and his choice. Unfortunately, in today's world, a great number of people serve evil consciously and even more unconsciously, blindly supporting the consumer's formative society. And the rest, most of the population of the planet, is passive and easily influenced from outside. One must understand that through our inaction and irresponsibility, we strengthen the egregore of consumist formative society. But the fate of all humanity depends on the choice of the majority of the population. The world elite sets people against each other in conflicts and wars. In doing so, they use certain technologies and deceive people with false promises. Their weapons are our silence and the ideology of Satan's minions. Their ideology is first and foremost the cultivation of all the basest and most animal in person. We have heard above what patterns of behavior are imposed on us through films and games. It is through ideology they develop political and religious concepts, doctrines, and programs masking their real interests behind an attractive screen. And their goal and main interest is undivided power over the masses of people. They actively disseminate their developments through organizations under their control and popularize them through the media because they are well aware that it is information that forms the world view. I must say that this is one of the key points because depending on the world view, a person makes a choice followed by the action. People should not only understand this but also actively oppose alien, anti-humane ideology to the best of their abilities, especially at the stage of preparation of public opinion on the internet and in the media. Otherwise, the ministers of evil will continue to use the effect of infecting the crowd through their army of politicians and priests, playing out public spectacles, imitating billions of television views, and fixing their minds in fear and obedience to the material system. Although generally speaking, this ideology only directs the individual and not the whole nations to practical actions within its framework, but only people decide whether to go to this direction or not, to adopt this ideology or reject it. Thus, in turn, it depends on what dominates in every human being. The needs of the animal beginning, the animal force, or the needs of the spiritual beginning. And again, right now, let's watch a fragment of the video with participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. Everyone has so much knowledge about the whole. So when we combine all these efforts, we are the most productive and accurate.
You know, every one of us has consciousness. Everyone's consciousness is a part of the whole. Sort of an egregore of consciousness is formed. No matter what we call it, it is strong, it is smart, it can forecast something, and so on. But each of us also has a personality. If we compare, let's call it simply, the egregore of consciousness and the egregore of personality, meaning what personality originates from. And if we unite at the level of personality, at the level of free people, really spiritually free people, then these field structures, let's simply call them so for understanding, the egregore of consciousness and the egregore of personality, it's impossible to compare them. Why? Because the egregore of personality will be infinite and eternal. As for the egregore of consciousness, we won't even find it in this infinity. It is nearly nothing. So, if we, as humanity as a whole, unite precisely on spiritual aspects, guys, I'm not saying on religious aspects, I'm saying on spiritual ones, and the difference is huge. No offense to religions. It's true. then our capabilities will be boundless. Really boundless. Why? Because spiritual aspects are all human values. That's what all the prophets who came here spoke about.
History knows many examples when different people at different times made their inner choice, which afterwards changed the destiny of whole nations, changed it for the better. As we have heard today, we are at the bifurcation point, a point of instability of the system. We need to decide where we are going. Into the abyss of self-destruction, maintaining the existing consumerist format of society, or building the society of love, life, and prosperity, the society of creation, creative society. We have about 2 years left for self-determination before December 2024, and then a self-sustaining reaction will start, which will be unstoppable. Thank you for your attention, and I give the floor back to the hosts. Thank you, Monica. And thank you to all the speakers and who were presenting the first part of the conference. Indeed, people who have made choices and united can change the world for the better. We're not united by property, by culture, by homes. Unification doesn't mean we all start wearing the same clothes, listening to the same music, or thinking the same way. No, we're uniting in our diversity only on the idea of a better world, a better society, a society in which human life comes first, and where everyone is ensured decent living conditions from birth. That's right, Monica. And what is the most important thing about unification? Human choice. It is said that every person is the master of his own happiness. There is a profound truth in those words. Many people think that other people are in charge of their happiness and put their destiny in the hands of others. Let them tell us and show us how to live. Let them solve the problems for us. And then one wonders why life does not bring the satisfaction and happiness that one craves somewhere inside. The system has a plan for every person's life, but whether this pre-planned and dictated scenario come true depends only on the person's own choice. Let's watch the video to understand why the system's plans don't always come true.
The world is widely aware of the prophecies of Nostradamus as well as the predictions of Edgar Cayce, Wolf Messing, Vanga and others. Have you ever wondered why their prophecies concerning global events, concerning the destiny of all humankind, either do not come true or develop according to a different scenario? Let's take a look at the facts.
For the year 2021, Nostradamus predicted for humankind famine, wars, pestilence, the collision of the Earth with an asteroid, and the sinking of entire continents into the ocean depth. Therefore, we can only be extremely happy about the fact that not all of the predicted things came true. In the 70s, the blind clairvoyant Vanga, whose mystical predictions have come true more than once, prophesied that in the early 2000s, a black man would be at the head of the White House and be the last president of the United States. Also, among those who saw through their channels the collapse of the United States and Barack Obama to be the last president, was a Christian guardian, Non Jobiznic. The revelation came to him in a dream. The United States would become like Israel and Judea, ruled by 44 kings, with the supply of rulers to be exhausted on the last one. By the way, Obama was exactly the 44th leader of the White House. Once again, the prophecy did not come true.
What prevents prophecies from coming true? In order to understand this, let's move from the global to the particular, to a person's destiny. A huge number of people want to know what their future is, but what is it that attracts people to this search? Why do they pay so much attention to what they don't know? In an effort to shape a better tomorrow, people turn to magicians to solve their problem or to discover and change their destiny. But what is destiny? Destiny is all events and circumstances that are predetermined and primarily affect the existence of a person, people, the predetermination of events and actions. Doom, destiny, lot, the higher power, which can be thought of as nature or deity. Can a person change his destiny? What do magicians say about it?
Destiny cannot be changed. Destiny can only be changed by a person himself.
Only a person himself can change his destiny. A person himself can change his attitude toward something. In other words, everything is in our heads. We, as conductors and carriers of energy and the ability to see what's next. We have no right to influence a person's destiny. We only have the right to suggest a direction where to go. We have the right to point out certain moments in life, but we have no right to decide for a person how he should live and what he should do. Our life depends on our way of thinking. And destiny, what is destiny? It's the judgment of God. It means that each one of us has a retribution for one's own deeds. Hence, depending on what you do and how you act, you get a corresponding result. Yes, well, that's the way it works. So it's kind of multivariate. When reading fortune, I always try to give up my own opinion and see what if I am a husband, what if I am a wife, what if I am a lover, what if I am a lover of a lover, so the person can see the whole picture, and then he can program himself for any future. What are probability destiny lines? Our whole life lies in probability lines. Imagine you're driving a car. You're driving along a road that splits into several lines. If you go straight ahead, you will arrive at, let's say, the ATB supermarket. If you turn right, you will arrive at a kindergarten. If you turn left, you will arrive at the airport. And depending on what decision you make at the road fork when you have to turn onto one of the roads, your future changes accordingly. Meaning, the options for the future exist. They are already prescribed by the universe in the canvas of your destiny. But it is your decision which of the options you want to implement in your life. And your, shall we say, tomorrow depends on your decision today. The stars change every 20 years, they change every year and every month, but global change happens every 20 years. The previous change was in 2004, the next one will be in 2024, the beginning of 2024, in February 2024. Now we are at the end of an era. The last 20 years of the era begin in 2024, the 9th cycle. It's a fiery cycle, it's a complex cycle. And only after 2044 will there come the good 20 years of the white cycle again, a new era, a new age. And if there are no serious changes before 2024, then further we are expecting some difficulties.
Many religions have the unspoken taboo on predictions. How do you feel and what do you think about it?
You know, I actually support this and I can explain why. Because when we predict, we kind of give a version of destiny to a person, and for that moment we take away from him the trials that may have been destined for him.
Since 2012, all people have become shamans. Now everyone hears something, sees something, feels something, predicts and foretells something. The only problem is that there are no methods of recognizing and understanding what the gods are telling us, what signs they are giving us, and how to live with it, how to understand and deal with it.
So, everyone can actually hear this?
That's exactly what's happened now. Some online media call it a quantum leap. Zana, what would be your advice to our viewers who, perhaps, on the one hand, are afraid of some influences from the invisible world, but on the other hand, would simply like to live well, happily, in prosperity, let's say, in mental harmony and so on?
May these people not disrupt the balance. If you want people to do you good, don't make shit yourself, because as a rule, there is no boomerang, there is balance. Think positively. Because people often say to themselves, I won't be able to, I won't make it, it's my destiny. No, you have to think positively, you have to attract good things in your life with your intention, raise your vibration, do sports, go to nature more often, that is, improve your life in every possible way. Do not live like this, like Groundhog Day, come home from work, have a meal, hang out somewhere at the weekend and go back to work. Develop, read, educate yourself, develop spiritually, maintain your physical shell, meaning, all of this taken together. I can advise people to just take care of themselves, of their life and bring only the best into it.
There is no such thing as destiny. Destiny is not a matter of chance, but the result of personal choice. Destiny is not something we should anticipate, but something we should create. A person's future depends on what he is doing in the present. So where did the concept of destiny, in the sense of inevitability of certain events, come from? And why are we forced to believe that a person is a hostage of destiny? And who needs it? The answer to this question lies in the dual nature of human beings. They can live like animals, according to the standard programs of the body. In that case, they have their destiny, and it is predetermined. But if a person develops his divine essence, then he goes beyond the programs of his animal nature and forms his future himself. Only an animal has a predetermined destiny. And this is the answer to the question why we humans are being dehumanized and reduced to the state of the beast. If this happens to all people, then the destiny of civilization will not be difficult to predict. The world elite, seeking to make controllable animals out of us people, imposes on us mass consciousness, the notion of destiny, a certain doom, and the fact that people will not be able to change anything. They throw in a prophecy that everything is allegedly already predetermined, so that people won't act, thinking that nothing depends on them, while they themselves are always active. After all, evil is well organized. People's belief in false prophecies makes them just passively wait for the end. Rulers and priests introduce a new destructive ideology to the masses. After all, they certainly know that destiny does not exist, because history does not happen, but it is created by the hands of people themselves.
We are used to believe that all bad things happen to us by accident. An accident is only a natural consequence of uncontrolled thoughts of a person. After all, a thought triggers an action and a chain of events in a person's life, and it turns out that there are no accidents.
An accident is a lie that distorts our reality. When we attribute everything to an accident, we remove responsibility from ourselves. An accident, a coincidence. These words immobilize a person. They should actually be removed from the vocabulary. Because our future is in our hands. And if people want, they can write history themselves. Because history does not happen, it is made by human hands.
Most people, in an effort to create a better future, do not live now, but they live on the hope for tomorrow. And tomorrow is like a horizon. Will it ever be? It will never be, because tomorrow you will be waiting for tomorrow. And so it goes on to infinity, until you become a subpersonality and realize that you should have lived now. A demon can't give life now, it just can't. He creates this horizon. When you reach the horizon, there is a beautiful future waiting for you. You will be what you want, and you will have everything you want. But instead of actually becoming happy and living, people hope that someday it will happen. So, who and how forms our future?
For 6,000 years, the concept of an angry God, the priests as conductors of God's will, and the rulers who are allegedly the smartest and decide everything has been formed. A society has been formed to which a miserable handout in the form of bread and circus was imposed, nurturing ignorance and indifference, inaction and doubt. When there is no confidence in your own abilities, you try to look into your future and find answers there.
So why do the prophecies on the negative scenario for all humankind not always come true? Because people who have gone beyond the programs of their animal nature do not sit idly by, but are active, and the result of their work positively affect the destiny of all humankind. After all, history doesn't happen, it is created by people themselves.
A human is not a toy in the hands of higher powers, but personality that has freedom of choice, and with their active work is capable of influencing not only the triumph of world justice, but also the growth of their own spiritual, immortal individuality. A person has attention, the most valuable currency in the universe. It is important for people to remember that attention is the key element in their everyday life. Whatever a person pays and gives attention to in his life, to what thoughts, preferences and desires, is what he receives. We know from history that Hitler practiced magic and also used the prophecies of his magicians. During World War II, he often visualized certain military situations. It should be noted that Hitler had no military education, and the generals did not take him seriously until a certain point. Until his military ideas began to suddenly succeed and his prophecies began to come true. One of Hitler's predictors was Erich Hanussen, who was close to Hitler. In 1932, he predicted the Reichstag fire and Hitler's upcoming victory in the elections. He promised, if Hanussen's prophecies came true, to make him dean of the occult university. Having become the Chancellor of the Reich in 1933, Hitler didn't forget his promise. In February that year, the occult palace opened in Berlin, with a bronze statue of Hanussen installed in its center. Meanwhile, there is a theory that Hanussen was executed because he had predicted to Hitler that he would end up badly.
Another Hitler's predictor was Sergei Vronsky. After graduating, he entered the service of Hess and took the post of a personal astrologer. Hess had virtually no secrets from Vronsky and consulted him about decision-making and planning. However, Sergei was already a Soviet intelligence officer at that time. When he became aware of the Barbarossa plan, the astrologer tried to warn the Soviet government of the impending war. Unfortunately, he wasn't heard. Wolf Messing. When Hitler learned that the psychic had predicted his death in case of the war with the USSR, he promised a reward of 200,000 marks for the capture of the psychic. Messing was eventually arrested but wasn't delivered to Hitler in time. The psychic gathered his guards into his cell with his power of thought and then escaped. He freely left first the city and then Germany, and at the border with the Soviet Union showed a leaflet with Hitler's instruction to find him instead of his passport. It is said that after his escape from Germany, Messing's struggle with Hitler continued on a telepathic level, and this was allegedly one of the reasons why the psychic was within a narrow circle of people close to Stalin.
However, all events tell us that despite the technology, the occult practices, and the enormous magical power that stood behind the Third Reich, Hitler's prophecies about Germany's invincibility did not eventually come true. Prophecies do not come true because there are always people who do not believe in these prophecies and change many things by their choice. The desire of people united in one goal to change their future ruins all the negative scenarios, plans, and prophecies of the dark forces.
However, predictions from God and from the devil are different things. It is one thing when God helps, but He sends prophets for this purpose, who give true prophecies. And it's another thing when Shaitan prompts, he talks about his plans, and those plans begin to come true. Yet Shaitan's plans come true only when people are subordinate to him. If a person gains life and becomes spiritually free, Shaitan loses power over him, and the person becomes responsible for his own choice and for his own life, because the concept of destiny is a written scenario from Shaitan. Whereas when a person really becomes a spiritually free, God-loving being, and his goal, the goal of his entire life, is to come to the spiritual world, then the power of Shaitan over him disappears. The person only prevents Shaitan from carrying out his plans, because such a person breaks not only Shaitan's plans regarding himself, but also regarding those who are close to him and who hear him. Why? Because by telling the truth, the person makes other people free as well, and everything changes. Shaitan is forced to remake and rearrange this network of his anew, excluding people who are already invisible to him.
People are used to shifting responsibility to someone else, to politicians, bosses, magicians, or anyone else. At the same time, they do not think about the consequences and often lose their human form. Let's try to figure out what the root of such irresponsibility is in the example of one experiment.
In 1963, Yale University professor Stanley Milgram began his research to clarify the question of how German citizens could have participated in the extermination of millions of innocent people in concentration camps under Nazi rule.
3 people participated in the experiment, 1 subject and 2 actors. 1 actor performed as head of the experiment, and the other as a learner. The learner had to fake the pain from electric shocks, which in fact did not take place. But the subject did not know about it until the end of the experiment. The subject was told that the purpose of the experiment was to study how punishment in the form of pain affects a person's memory. It was stated that one of the participants, the learner, had to memorize pairs of words from a long list until he memorized every pair, while the other, the teacher, had to check the memory of the first and punish him for every mistake with an increasingly strong electric shock. At the moment when the learner asked to stop the experiment, screaming in pain, the head of the experiment put maximum pressure on the teacher and demanded to continue, arguing that he would take full responsibility for the experiment. The results obtained shocked everyone, most of all Milgram himself. In total, 40 experiments were conducted in the series. The results looked like this. Only one subject stopped at a voltage of lower than 300 volts, and 26 out of 40 reached 450 volt. One professor described what was happening as follows. A self-confident 40-year-old man came into the room with a steady gain in a suit. 10 minutes later, a red, sweaty man with shaking hands was sitting in front of me. There was no trace of the former man. He humbled. My God, what am I doing? What am I doing? Then he struck himself with his fist to the head, but pressed the button anyway.
Milgram repeated the experiment in different cities at different times with different subjects. The results didn't change much. Many obeyed the power of authority rather than being guided by their conscience. But there were those who categorically refused to participate further. According to Milgram, the obtained data indicates interesting phenomenon. This research has shown the extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any length on the command of an authority.
This experiment was conducted 50 years later, but the results did not change much. The ability of the government to obtain obedience from ordinary citizens becomes clear now. The habit of obeying authority figures puts a great deal of pressure on people and controls behavior, taking them away from responsibility for their actions. This can also include the nature of learned helplessness syndrome. Since childhood, we are taught that the history of humanity consists of continuous wars and violence, and we get used to the fact that human life is worthless, that fear is the normal condition of a person. By choosing helplessness, we have built a society filled with fear today. But is it okay to live in fear? What is the point of such existence? Fear and helplessness mean inaction. Less than 1% of the people dictate slave conditions of existence for the other 99%. We are puppets in the hands of the puppeteers. Isn't it similar to the story when a little boy leads a big elephant by the rope? Let's look at ourselves from the side.
Elephants are habituated to a rope since childhood. First, they are tied to a tree, and an elephant calf trying to escape understands that the rope is many times stronger than him. Then, already being a grown-up elephant, he no longer even makes attempts to become free, because he understands that the rope, which is stronger than him, will win anyway. And when already a human the strength of a human and an elephant is incomparable, but an elephant still submits to a human and follows him with his head down, is the same in human society.
The whole point, imagine. An ordinary human, skinny and little, is leading an elephant on a rope. Why? Because the elephant believes that the rope is holding him. Friends, we have the same thing. Nothing is holding us, except our imaginary rope. And I would simply like to say, friends, let us stop being stupid elephants, and let's become humans. The most dangerous consequence of learned helplessness is inaction. Because of a subconscious but firm belief that life cannot be changed, a person stops taking any action for this. And he does not use and sometimes does not notice the opportunities available to him to do so. And let's honestly figure out, what are we helpless in? Are we helpless to be kind? Are we helpless to be sincere and open? Are we helpless to love? Or are we helpless not to support evil and violence in our society? If we want to be free and happy, we must act. We make a choice. With every action we take, by choosing good and love, we fill this world with joy, and we become happier ourselves. You cannot always be a hero, but you can always be a human with a capital letter H.
There are examples when, in the most inhuman as it may seem conditions, people have shown the highest degree of humanness. After more than 70 years, the history of the Second World War has revealed more and more facts of human sufferings and dignified behavior. Among them is the forgotten heroic deed of Uzbek soldiers in the Netherlands, far from their homeland.
This story took place in 1941. When Soviet troops were suffering huge losses in the encirclement cauldrons. Many were taken prisoners. Soldiers were sent to concentration camps across Europe. One of them, called Amersfoort, was situated in the Netherlands. 101 Soviet soldiers were brought there in wagons for carrying cattle. One of the Dutch prisoners in this camp wrote in his diary that they were completely different from the Russians, short, with dark skin, and a different set of eyes. Unlike the other prisoners, this group was placed not in barracks, but in an open-air barbed wire enclosure. The prisoners were clearly being prepared for something. They were given virtually no food, forced to do the hardest work, and then beaten. Later, a film crew arrived at the camp. The selected German soldiers lined the perimeter of the enclosure, all well-dressed, tall, fair-haired. Just a perfect contrast to the swarthy, stunned and humiliated prisoners. A car drove up, and the Germans opened the boot. There was fresh bread in it, and a German officer deftly, with a beautiful gesture, threw for the camera one of the loaves into the center of the enclosure. The Germans had planned to film a mass fight between prisoners over bread, to show in a propaganda movie how the Soviet subhumans were fighting over food and the Aryans were restoring order. But the film was never to be made. After the bread landed in the mud of the enclosure, no crowd rushed to it. In the deadly silence, one of the prisoners walked up to the bread, took it in his hands, put it to his forehead, and walked over to the others. The Uzbeks were sitting in a circle, cross-legged, according to their custom. The oldest of the prisoners received the bread, broke off a small piece and gave it to the youngest. Then broke off another piece and another. He took the last piece for himself. The Uzbeks slowly ate that bread, said a prayer, and rose from the ground. They were specifically selected so that the prisoners would look nothing like the Germans. They tried to torture them to the bestial state, so that they would put up a growl for food on camera. As a result, it turned out that even in the most hopeless situation, they remained humans.
And there are many such examples of humanness. Humanness. It is humanness that forms the future of happy people. One school principal sent a letter to every teacher he employed.
Dear teacher, I've survived a concentration camp. My eyes saw things that no man should ever see. I saw how educated engineers were building gas chambers. I saw how qualified doctors poisoned children, how trained nurses killed babies, how graduates of higher educational institutions shoot and burned children and women. Therefore, I do not trust education. I'm asking you, help your pupils become humans. Your efforts should never lead to the creation of scientists' monsters, trained psychopaths, educated Eichmanns. Reading, writing, and mathematics are only important when they help our children to become more human.
Each of us has those moments in life when the time comes and a person feels an acute need to search for the meaning of their existence. The person tries to find answers to the questions: who am I? Where am I going? What am I here for? What do I really want? And what happens when a person simply chooses the path of least resistance? How often do we hear, "He has become a hostage to the situation"? In such cases, the person is simply not aware that he or she is in crisis.
And this crisis can become for a person the foothold, that impulse, which allows him to move to a new level of development, to a new self. The situations that precede this impulse are endless, but the reason is always the same: a strong inner desire to change something. And so, when the person makes his choice, he thus switches his attention, empowers new information, which transforms his life into a certain reality. In essence, he arrives at a bifurcation point.
In other words, a bifurcation is our chance to make a change for the better or for the worse. It is the state in which a person radically changes his or her views without going back to past habitual actions. It is the moment of our choice. There are such moments not only in work, but also in relationships, whether it is about partners, friends, family, colleagues, or employees.
At the time of making a decision, there is a change of focus, and as a consequence, a change in the way of life one is used to. The person understands that there is no going back to the past, and it is no longer possible to build life or relationships according to the old familiar schemes. A man using all his possible resources, facing the moments of truth before himself, moves to a new, higher level, and a new space opens before him, new opportunities, and life becomes more fulfilling and meaningful. It is a turning point in life that fundamentally changes one's destiny and can influence the destiny of the world around. After all, everything in life is interconnected.
Meteorologist, mathematician, and synergist Edward Lorenz described the sensitivity of a system to the slightest change in the following way. A single flap of a butterfly's wing in Iowa could in principle trigger an avalanche of effects culminating in a monsoon in Indonesia.
Today, all of our knowledge of the fundamental sciences, the critical instability of society, and indeed we ourselves are at a global bifurcation point, and our fragile world depends on our choices and on where our attention will be. We can only trust that as we approach the next bifurcation point, humankind will choose the path of goodness, love, and prosperity. As it turns out, we can easily change this world for the better.
Dushan, what prevents us from understanding this? What is the biggest deception?
It's not that simple.
Why?
No, I mean that's the biggest deception. It's not that simple. And that's the lie that gets repeated over and over.
And what's not so simple?
Everything. Absolutely everything. Everyone wants you to give up. They say, it's not that simple.
So what's the truth?
Everything is simple. If they say you can't do something, do it. And that's it. And you'll realize that it's very simple. And it has always been.
Indeed, everything is really simple. The best way to foresee the future is to create it.
Yes. If you want to foresee the future, create it.
Plány systému sa naplnia len vtedy,
The plans of the system are fulfilled only if people obey to it. However, if a personality acquires life and becomes spiritually free, the shaitan loses power over him and a person becomes responsible for his own decisions and for his own life, because destiny is a script prescribed by the system. A person is not a toy in the hands of higher forces, but a personality with freedom of choice. This freedom of choice is given to a person by God Himself. And the main resource of a personality is attention and the time. And it is the main resource, and it is where we direct attention and how we use our time that determines and shapes our life, and not just our life. After all, a person by his active position can change the vector of society, and that is the main thing. We ourselves choose our own destiny and the destiny of humankind. Friends, we all feel that there is a certain spiritual connection between all of us. For as earlier said, a person is dualistic and it has a spiritual component as well as the material one. And all the prophets who came here spoke about the spiritual component, the spiritual unity of people. Yaroslava, I pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Monica. All the prophets told people that God is love. To love is to be a single. To single whole unity and unification of people is the central subject of all the teachings of all the prophets. After all, the spiritual world is a unity of equals among equals. At different times, God sends prophets to the earth for all people. Notice, friends, not for some group of people, country, or nation, but for everyone. And the knowledge which the prophet brought is the only truth for the entire humanity. The essence of the truth is that a human is a spirit, and that we have come here from one home, the world of spirit, the spiritual world. When people came into the world of matter, they forgot who they are and why they came here. The prophets coming into this world gave people knowledge on how they could return to their true home. They helped people in their spiritual development. The spiritual world is one and united, and everyone who came from it is one in their spiritual essence. This may be compared to the way how different vessels are filled with water from the same source. In the same way, we humans are different outwardly, but we are the same in our spiritual essence. That's why the prophets spoke about the importance of believers, of their unity. Because just as in the spiritual world everything is one, so is here. There must be unity between those who sincerely go to God. I suggest that we watch the quotes about unity from various religions.
The messenger of God, God's prayers and peace be with him, said, "Adhere to the Jama, beware of separation, for indeed Ash-Shaitan is with one, and he is further away from two. Whoever wants the best place in paradise, then let him stick to the Jama. And do not be like those who split into sects and differed after clear proofs had come to them. It is they who will suffer a tremendous punishment. He brought their hearts together. Had you spent all the riches in the earth, you could not have united their hearts, but Allah has united them. Indeed, He is Almighty, All-Wise." Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Now I plead with you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. By being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them, and that they may be one just as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. May all beings be happy and safe. May they have happy minds. Let him not deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. In anger or ill will let him not wish another ill. Just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless love towards all beings. Not falling into wrong views, being virtuous, endowed with insight, lust in the senses discarded, verily never again will he return to conceive in a womb. Other people are like me. What they are, that's what I am. Understand, see yourself in others and others in yourself, and you will not kill or encourage anyone to kill. He who seeks the true life endeavors to unite the separated, to strengthen the harmony of the united among themselves. What he hears here, he does not communicate there, so as not to divide ones with others. He delights in harmony and cares for harmony. The harmony of others is his bliss. We are reflections of the one divinity, facets of the one immortal self, and our essence is love, which is our own true nature, the Atma or divine self. See the world with the vision of truth. All are one, all are essentially divine. Give up multiplicity to attain unity. The Vedanta declares that the Atmic principle is the underlying unity in diversity. Bulbs are many, but the same current flows in all of them. Likewise, the Atmic principle exists in all. Man's inability to understand this principle of unity is the cause of his ignorance. True humanness lies in understanding unity in multiplicity. You have to develop samayak drishti in order to develop unity. This was Buddha's first teaching.
The truth is one. While all the differences are rituals that people formed when their religions were developed, and the actual division of people to assert the power of the priests. Jesus Christ said, God is alive. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, Allah is the living one. And they said that people should serve only God, Allah, and no one else. And in this we are all united. What is Islam? Love, in the literal sense of the word. It's the right sense of it. And what is love? Love is unity. And did the Prophet, peace be upon him, have a division? No. The last prophet had an understanding and taught all his disciples that a Muslim is the one who believes in one God. Just as Christians called Muslims as well. In Islam, the call of Muslims to unity is not some recommendation or advice to a Muslim, but it's the duty of every Muslim to strive towards Muslim unity. All the prophets spoke of unity. But what do we people choose? Let's watch an excerpt from the video The Circle of Life with Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Also, Igor Mikhailovich, regarding Christianity, it was also interesting. After all, the prayer of Jesus Christ at the Last Supper was about oneness. He said, "May they all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I am in you. May they also be one in us." It is that very understanding of what both Buddha in his sermon and Jesus said that they would wish this oneness of believers, oneness in the Spirit, oneness in God.
And I have a question. Why do believers not hear them? These religions have existed for thousands of years, the ones you've just mentioned. So where is our oneness? Have they succeeded? If we live in such times, and who is to blame? Is it their fault? If they laid down their lives, earthly lives, what's the difference? It is clear that they are living, and nothing will happen to them. But what they went through here as human beings, and the fact that they spent all this time convincing people to change, the fact that they brought the knowledge here, and were conveying it to people their entire lives, as long as they were present here, and they were heard and listened to. But then what? What was the choice?
Separation and domination in front of one another, yes.
Isn't that so? People are divided everywhere around. Hatred, envy, and a desire for dominance. Let's take a small cell, a family. Isn't it the same in society and everywhere around? For how much longer can we tolerate this? If it remains this way, further there will be nothing. We must change something.
Today there are 7 billion believers in the world, but there is no unity among them. What do they argue about? People argue with each other that only their God is true. But the prophet said that God is one. For people who are just at the beginning of their spiritual path, or who are only wondering how to understand that all people are one, we can make a comparison and imagine that there is a father and a family, a father of the family. He has children. In this case, the children represent various religions. In any family, children often do not find common language. Everyone thinks he is less loved, so he tries to prove that he is better. These children have their own children, that is, grandchildren of the father of the family. In this case, we can compare this with many various divisions into branches of the same religion. They have arguments among themselves and prove to each other what their parents proved to their father. But, as a matter of fact, we are all one big family, and we all have the same God. Regardless of religion, regardless of whether a person is a materialist or not, we are all relatives, very close ones. And for the spiritual world, there is no division at all. It doesn't matter what language a person prays in. It is us who have languages here, and we are divided here. But in fact, the Holy Spirit is the one who is in everyone, who is the path that originates in the spiritual world. It is that message from God and that which God has endowed us, everyone, with this. And it is the spiritual nature of a human. It's alatra. It's impossible to deny it. You can call it in different way, but the essence will not change. When grandchildren and children understand that they should not compete with their father or grandfather, but they just should love him, at least for what he is, for being their father, understand that it is one family. When one family is united, it is able to stand up to the devil and anyone, because it's one family. And when people understand this, they stop divisions. Consciousness and the slaves of consciousness divide us. Those for whom it is beneficial. In such a way, they divide a single whole into fragments. This is like children and grandchildren divided with their living father. Some will take an arm, some a leg. In fact, this is what happens. But God is actually one. And we are all united in our innermost. We are united in our single unity. People, regardless of their religions, should work hard on themselves and develop spiritually to get to know this connection with the spiritual world. This is the most correct way for a human who follows the spiritual path. After all, the shortest, direct, straight path to unity with God is with people and is love. Thank you very much for your attention. I give the floor to the hosts.
Yaroslava, thank you so much for reminding us of the teachings of the prophets. All the prophets came from one God and brought one truth. And what was the main idea of their teachings? Unity and unification of people. If we had followed this, we would have lived in a spiritual friendship and unity as one family long ago. Veronica will tell us more about that. Veronica, the floor is yours. Thank you. Evidence of the spiritual unity of people we find in the signs and symbols of antiquity. Let's watch the fragment of the video, Circle of Life.
It seems to me that it's much more important when people communicate in a common language, the language of love, the true language. How can you not see and not feel it? You can. If the devil who covers the light is in front of you, this is actually people's choice, to put the devil in front of them, or to be open to God's love, to the entering of the Holy Spirit.
Who urges them straight to actions. Only then you become,
of course,
a true friend, a friend who is acting shoulder to shoulder, so to say.
Yet, again, he is acting not for his own benefit, or for the benefit of some priest or someone else, or a dictator, but exactly when people's action is aimed at serving the spiritual world, and not someone's private interest, or, moreover, any hatred or human stupidity. Isn't that so? As well as egoism, pridefulness, or something else.
Igor Mikhailovich, in Orthodoxy, there is such a saint, let's say, as Abba Dorotheus, who said that in order to achieve this unity of people,
the circle.
Yes, I'll read it out. Let us suppose that this circle is the world and that God Himself is the center. The straight lines drawn from the circumference to the center are the lives of men. The closer they are to God, the closer they become to one another. And the closer they are to one another, the closer they become to God. Now consider in the same context the question of separation. So the closer people approach God, the closer they become to each other indeed.
Well, let's say this is banal geometry, and he is absolutely right here. But do you know what the trouble is? That long before him, at least 4,000 years before he lived, he died in the 560s, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
It turns out to be the 6th century in Palestine.
Exactly. It turns out that more than 4,000 years before him, this was known and talked about. And we often see a circle with a dot inside. So, even in ancient times this was described.
What does this mean?
I will tell you to make it clear. As a matter of fact, if we approach this from the perspective of mathematics or geometry, he is absolutely right in this. While, before him, it was considered that there are those who are within the circle, and there are those who are beyond the circle. They began to talk about this approximately in the late 5th or the early 6th millennium. Guys, I count from the time of the end of Atlantis towards our time, but not from the nativity of Christ in the opposite direction. At that time, let's say, there was already a transition from the ideal society to the creative society, which later on, almost in 1,000 years, already passed into a consumerist format in the times of the activity of Sumerians. That's when this explanation appeared. Why? Because people from beyond the circle emerged. Thus, a process of vacillation slightly began, which this fading had been developing for thousands of years, until it completely came to naught. And that's when this explanation appeared. It is literally mathematical. I'm just saying, a circle, a dot inside, and approximation. Yet, if we consider this, it is also related again to the spiritual development of a person himself. When a person goes around the circle, not entering the main area, well, let's put it this way to make it clear. We live by earthly things. We walk everywhere around in our thoughts. I don't mean physical movement. We walk around and roam in all sorts of nooks of our consciousness. Everywhere. We are awaited somewhere friends meet us, and somewhere foes do, who talk to us, who, pardon me, speaking modern language, troll or humiliate us. Or someone supports us, while someone tempts us to do bad deeds. Yet, there are also those who stop us when we want to do a wrong deed. That's what we call conscience. We are now talking about the circle of consciousness. Again, this is an ancient interpretation for you to understand. That's where there was exactly an understanding that in the middle of this circle of ours, there's a point through which we go out into eternal life. So we should enter this circle, stop walking outside the circle and listening to bad things, but should live only within the circle where a red line is drawn, of what you accept and what you don't. Your entire energy, your entire power of love should be directed to the very point, while the point is nothing other than our soul. It is love, joy, and the like. This way, our circle gradually narrowed. I mean, we ousted everything unnecessary, that which turns us into a beast, leaving within the circle those qualities and everything valuable that makes us alive, makes us a human. Well, this is one of such methods which enables one to understand how to follow the spiritual path properly. This is what concerned the lesser, but there was the greater. The concept of the greater applied to the entire humanity. There are those who are beyond the circle. There are people who are undecided, or let's say, people who consider themselves atheists, or even consider themselves believers, but they are far from God's love. While there are those who enter the circle of God's love, who contact it somehow, well, more or less, but they already feel, there's already some response from them. They are already in a certain resonance with each other. This forms a full circle. Well, for example, our table is round, and there's a red line. Beyond this red line, there live all non-believers, those who don't love God. While here, all of us enter, everyone who loves God. And we gradually approach, depending on how much we serve the spiritual world, how much we love, how big our devotion is, we are closer and closer to the center, to the spiritual world itself. Thus, the closer we are. And here, our connection is formed. After all, just imagine the distance. We are here and here, right?
Right.
We are far. But when we are close, look what the distance is. No matter how we take it, we are closer, we feel each other better. We become a single organism as we approach God Himself. We become His part. Well, there used to be such an interpretation as well. Yet, the whole point is exactly that the more personal effort we invest, the closer we become to God. The more we feel, and the better we feel each other.
Thank you for the explanation, Igor Mikhailovich. Our participants conducted a small research and discovered that the image of a circle with a dot is found all over the world. Let's watch a video with these artifacts. As we can see, people on all continents possessed the primordial knowledge. They knew the necessity and importance of their spiritual development. Walking along the path of spiritual development, everything fell into place. The understanding of the simplicity of the path came, the essence of which is to be constantly in contact with the spiritual world through one's own deepest feelings. When every person directs his attention to God, he is always in touch with Him and in touch with those who also put their attention into the love of God. All are striving towards the one, and all are united by love for God. Everyone is in the same circle of love. It is love that makes a human free from temptation and fear of death. Free inside in spirit, such a person does not look for support in the external, but leans on his inner. Such a human cannot be manipulated or controlled. He does not serve earthly kings. He serves only God. When such people came together, they're able to change the course of history and do much for God and other people. Spiritual friendship is when people are in the same circle, the circle of love, that is, the circle of service to God. It is a certain group that serves and lives this idea and this purpose. Its meaning to them. People feel the grace of God. They're filled with an inner fire and want to share that joy with others. Such a legend was told in the video The Circle of Life. Once the Venerable Ananda came to Buddha and said that, from his own point of view, a half of the holy life consists in spiritual friendship. Buddha immediately corrected him, saying, "Say not so, Ananda. It is the whole, not the half of the spiritual life." Thank you for your attention, and I pass the floor to Gabriela.
Ďakujem, Veronika.
Thank you, Veronica. Hello, dear friends. Today we talked about the unification of people, but we must understand that people can unite in different ways. There can be unification at the level of matter or at the level of spirit. When people unite at the level of consciousness out of mercantile interests, out of fear, profit, or forcibly united under the rule of a dictator, then such union is unstable and leads to the state of depression of spirit. And spiritual friendship is a true unity in love for God, which unites the hearts of people and makes it possible to overcome any difficulties by joining together. The question arises, what is true unity and how can it be achieved? As it's said in the film Consciousness and Personality, from the inevitably dead to the eternally alive, true unity in this world is impossible without spiritual development. Why? Because consciousness divides. The first thing it does, it encapsulates a person and singles him out of himself. All this has taken place at the level of consciousness, a perception of personality of what consciousness is telling it, namely, you're alone, you, and you. At that unification, it is unification of the community of interests. Let's say so, of a certain circle of people, but no more, whereas true unity may take place only at the spiritual level. Personality, when it achieves perception of the spiritual world, it already feels people of the same kind who perceive that world, and that is where unification is taking place. We have heard today that negative prophecies for all mankind are not coming true exactly because people who are on the spiritual path are changing the course of history throughout their choice and actions. Now it is time of crossroads, the time of global choice of humankind, and everyone has to decide whether he is in circle of life or outside of it. Even in the teachings of the most ancient non-biblical scripture, the Daki, in the first verse of the first chapter, there are such words: "There are no two ways, one for life and one for death."
That information is encountered about the importance during this last period, in this era of fight between the forces of good and evil. precisely of the choice of people themselves, precisely of their active position and their active participation in that. And it is interesting that two scenarios are always described of what this future will be like. Let's say a good scenario and a bad scenario. Either there will be a golden age, or unfortunately,
there will be nothing.
There will be nothing, and people will be destroyed.
The eternal fight between Hake and Bell, right?
But, for instance, regarding the Golden Age, I would really like to share the following. In the sacred books of Hinduism, it is mentioned that owing to the truth, which will be given by the future Maitreya, people will lose their doubts, and the torrents of their cravings will be cut off. Free from all misery, they will manage to cross the ocean of becoming, and as a result of Maitreya's teachings, they will lead a holy life. They will have torn the net of the passion, and theirs will be an abundance of joy and happiness, for they will lead a holy life under Maitreya's guidance. The true Dharma will open to people and enable them to create a new world, a society of love. The era of Maitreya is also called the era of the Mother of the World. In Vishnu Purana, the time of the advent of Maitreya Kalki Avatar is described. When the close of the Kali age shall be nigh, a portion of that divine being who exists of his own spiritual nature in the character of Brahma shall descend upon the earth. The minds of those who live at the end of the Kali age shall be awakened and shall be as pellucid as crystal. The men who are thus changed by virtue of that peculiar time shall be as the seeds of human beings and shall give birth to a race who shall follow the laws of the Krita age, the age of purity. Here, I'd like to focus attention on the point that, at all times, it is exactly said that the choice of people, and precisely an active position of people, actually plays a decisive role. Today, we're living in a special time, and all people of the world have this need in unity and this need in true friendship, because all religions proclaim one and the same truth, that God is one. All religions, let's say, call for this universal love, love for God and love for people. And any kind of delusions that one person is superior to another one, or that his religion is more sacred, only show and demonstrate that these people still haven't understood the very essence of their teachings.
Of that teaching which they teach others.
The dream of all prophets was humankind living in harmony and well-being on a beautiful and safe earth. But that didn't happen because we didn't follow our prophets. And the situation in which humankind finds itself is quite natural. The main cause of all our troubles is fragmentation. And as it has been said many times today, everything begins with the human and his choices. Therefore, it depends on each one of us whether there will be a future or not. The more people who unite and enter the circle of life, the greater the chance for humanity to survive. The problem is that we don't understand the responsibility that has fallen to us at the time of the crossroads. Global climate change poses an inevitable choice. Do we want to live or die? We have one last chance left. Here's a video with participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov. Let's watch it.
Let me explain it in a simpler way for you. Let's say you're walking down the road and you come to a crossroads. There are 3 roads in front of you. If you go left, you will die. If you go right, you will die. And if you go straight, you will live in the creative society. So, this is exactly the crossroads in 2024. If humanity has the tendency of going straight, it means everything will be fine. But if in the year 2024, let's say at the end of December, we do not decide where we are going, well then, friends, I suggest that you intensify, really intensify your work on yourselves and spreading Allatra.
Thank you, Igor Mikhailovich. Everything, as always, is based on human choice, and we determine our own fate by our choice. As it is said in the book Azoosmos by Anastasia Novich, good thoughts combined with a strong desire are forerunners of good deeds. Good deeds are the essence of maturing souls. Courage begets the power of spirit. The power of spirit rallies into unity. Unity decouples the power. The united spirit changes the cycle. The overall result depends on everyone's effort. Everyone's effort depends on the change of inner frequency. Frequency is a leap of a moment, leading beyond the boundaries of Po. In the Encyclopedia of the Primordial Knowledge of Human Spiritual Development, the book Allatra, there is no dot at the end, as a reminder to us humans that our destiny is in our hands. Thank you for your attention, and I give the floor back to hosts. Thank you, Gabriela. That is indeed true. Now we stand on the doorstep of global changes, and we all have to decide, do we choose to be or not to be? Do we want to live or to die? Which of these answers will be brought to life is not known yet. Everything, as always, depends on human choice, on what we as people choose. Friends, are we even aware of the responsibility that is on our shoulders? Many people experience fear exactly because they have to take on responsibility. They fear that it will bring some discomfort, inconvenience, or unhappiness. But is this really the case? After all, the person who takes on responsibility automatically begins to take active action because he cares about the world in which his family, his children, and the people around him live. And this action further awakens his human essence and develops in him the need to care for others. And in fact, the more you do for others, the more you do for yourself. Renata, please, the floor is yours. Have you ever noticed that when you sincerely wanted to help someone, no matter whether with a kind word or deed, and you eventually succeeded, you immediately felt such a warm, pleasant feeling of fulfillment and happiness? You could say a feeling of true satisfaction. By helping others, you help yourself. And this is not some lofty phrase, but a really working, even one might say, profitable scheme. Only this profit is not material values and goods, but in accumulating and multiplying the feeling of happiness and fulfillment, which is much more valuable. This is a kind of spiritual egoism, the most right egoism. Once realizing and feeling this, a person strives to do even more, because by accumulating this energy in himself, a person is overwhelmed with it and just wants to share it with others. Otherwise, not giving it back to God and people, it is stagnates, becomes marsh without the new inflow of vital energy or God's grace, as they say in religions. And it becomes bad and uncomfortable for the person. Feeling of inner joy and satisfaction disappears. And when you share it with others, you fill up yourself. A human is dual by nature. He is spiritual component. He has spiritual component, soul and personality, and an animal component, his body and consciousness. Consciousness that does not have his own energy. In fact, it is a parasite. But a true human is a personality. We have already talked about this many times in our Kaleidoscope of Facts. So by helping others, human makes his animal work for himself as a personality. He removes attention from his own ego, material, me, or consciousness, and thereby helps himself as a personality without losing energy, but rather accumulating it. After all, when consciousness is busy, it controls you less and takes away energy. There's an expression, either you load the consciousness or it loads you. In the modern world, selfless help to other people is associated with the concept of altruism. Altruists are recognized as the happiest people. Studying the phenomenon, experts in the field of treatment of psychological disorders, depression, came to the conclusion that people whose life prioritizes to help others feel happier than those who tirelessly seek to realize their desires of their ego.
Yes, indeed. It has been scientifically and experimentally proven that altruism actually helps much more to a person who seeks to help another person, and last of all, to the one whom he helps.
And now, Jana has told us the biggest secret, the secret of humaneness, which is concealed from us. If you want to be happy, make other people happy. Then you will also be happy. This is the only path to happiness. If you want to be loved, love others. Begin to love. Really love other people and help them. And you will be loved, this is true. No one likes evil, wicked, nasty, greedy and bad people. Yes, some people toady. They envy him if he holds some position or something else in society, as they say, but a person actually lives by hatred. He lives in filth, and he understands this. It makes him even angrier. Well, is it really life when you are angry? When you are afraid of something? When you feel bad? It's not life. Life is joy. Life is love. Life is life.
Yes, great words. We really do choose how we live our lives, in anger and hatred or in joy and happiness. And when you do something good and useful for people, you feel life, you feel happy, fulfilled and alive. A person who lives only for himself, who chooses to live only for his own pleasures, loses at the end. After all kinds of material pleasures taken together lead to only one result. Our brain determines the continuation of the banquet. Again and again, it needs dopamine and neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure. This race can go on indefinitely, and happiness in it is just a horizon which is always the same distance from us. So it's not egocentrism and material pleasures that make a person truly happy, but the acquisition of real life and feeling of belonging to something bigger than himself. If we talk to people whose professions are designed to save lives, doctors, rescuers, etc., they all say that one who understands the value and meaning of life lives not only for himself but also for others. For him to save a person's life is a real thrill. And you know what is most interesting? The secret of happiness has been known for a long time. All prophets have talked about it. The medieval Persian treatise, select counsels of ancient sages, also known as the Book of Counsels of Zarathustra. I must have no doubt but that profit rises from good works and loss from sin, that my friend is Ahramazd and my enemy Ahriman, and that there is only one religious way. This one way is that of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. This way of heaven, of light, and of purity, of the infinite creator Ahramazd, who was always and will always be. Be vigilant and zealous for good works, and consider that since the value of good works is so great and limitless, the destructive spirit strives his utmost to conceal this truth and to cause your misery, and Ahramad strives his utmost to reveal the truth. The Quran declares competition of good deeds to be goal of our lives. It is they who race to do good deeds always taking the lead. So come with one another in doing good. So let whoever aspires to this strive diligently. In Buddhism, the life and teachings of the Buddha do good to others, not so that they may be good toward you, but because in doing so, you do good to your own soul. Give charity, be merciful, for this is necessity for a human being, and above all, learn to love. Try to feel as others feel, try to understand them, try to have compassion for them, and love will come. In Christianity, love one another, and as I have loved you. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in the power of your hand to do so. I have shown you in every way by laboring like this that you must support the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." So it turns out that everything is simple. The more you do for others, the more you do for yourself. This is one of the recipes of achieving true happiness. And since desire coming from within to help people can change the fate of not only the person, but also the entire humanity. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, Renata. Indeed, the more one does good for others, the more one does good for oneself. Friends, as you know, every Kaleidoscope of Facts is prepared by volunteers, participants of ALLATRA International Public Movement from all over the world. So you write to us and ask, how is it possible? Why are we doing this? What can we gain from participating and preparing and hosting these programs? We invite you to watch just a small portion of the responses from people involved in the preparation of Kaleidoscope of Facts episodes.
And it's the best way for me to use my time and attention into bringing the truth to people. I understood now for some times that the truth is most of the time hidden from people. The truth that people can really use for their own development, to bring their future, a bright future. And I think I want to be part of this movement that can bring this truth, helping people back to them.
One person as a unit can do very little. But when there are many units like this, then it is already an entire united team that really acts as a single organism and aspires to get to know the truth that has been hidden from us throughout the ages.
And by bringing the truth back to people, we have a chance, an opportunity to change everything completely. That is, knowing the true history, we can avoid making the mistakes of the past. And now it is the very time when together we can change the format of society to the creative one.
If you look at how a kaleidoscope actually works, when you rotate it to one side or the other, you can see a new pattern.
Every kaleidoscope could be made into a book, and that's what you would normally teach in school.
Thanks to this project, I have learned to work a lot better in a team.
Collaboration with international teams is very enriching. We work not only here in the Czech Republic, but also with teams from Slovakia, Europe, in fact from all over the world.
When you get involved in this process during technical support, it turns out that we feel that there are a lot of us, and there are people, our friends, in different countries too. And we look at speakers, we look at what they're doing behind the scenes, and it's a lot of fun, it's very cool. You feel inside joy and involvement in a big and important process.
I love doing voiceovers for live broadcasts. I love editing my videos and watching what great video clips the guys made. How much they conveyed this information. It's so cool and engaging. I love the voices of my friends. When the voiceover of the Romanian translation is laid over the video. And you know, it just creates a lot of love. For every person is unique. Each one does things in a different way, and everyone is beautiful.
When one person speaks, another one speaks, and a third one compliments, there is such mutual interaction, there is such unity. And the greatest thrill is when the speech comes out. And when you read it, it's really the bomb. Absolutely awesome.
You know, when there is a question, either to sleep or to edit a video, I may say there is no question as such, because you just start doing it, because you know how important it is. You realize that it can help a lot of people change themselves, change the world around them, change society and civilization.
I once thought about how it differs from the other things you do during the day. And you really feel like you are alive. If you didn't get any work done that day, didn't do anything for the common goal, then you feel like you didn't live that day. That's life indeed.
But when the kaleidoscope is over, you see everyone turning on their cameras, and there are so many people who have been working behind the scenes. There's an entire team. Not only the technical team, so many people, so many interpreters turn on their cameras, and this is such a wave of unity with everyone. You just look at it. Well, it's only solid love and one solid family.
It is a way to reach a huge number of people and inform them about what is actually happening in the world. And together, we can change the world for the better.
When people work together, then the truth becomes more purified. Because the more people are working towards this one common goal, the purer it becomes, and the closer we can get to the truth.
The information that was concealed, that was actually somehow hidden somewhere. We are now bringing this truth to the surface.
There are a lot of kaleidoscopes of facts, not only on historical topics, but also on spiritual ones, about the spiritual teachers of humankind, about how religions came to be. What are the spiritual grains in religions? What are the substitutions in religions? In other words, all this a person must know in order to become a human, in order for society to come to the prosperity that all the prophets spoke about.
We are proving that people who are united can do far more work than when everyone is separated into small groups.
In normal conditions, I probably wouldn't be able to bear such a load. But in this case, it's as if you get a second wind, as if help is coming. And it's really so cool when the kaleidoscope is released and you see that this is what we've been picking up in bits and pieces. Maybe one person did a little, just found one quote, another person found a video. But when it all comes together, you see this masterpiece, which came out in the end. It's an incredible thrill, really.
There is a kaleidoscope today, and when you watch it from the beginning to the end, you realize how perfectly everything aligns.
Each episode of the Kaleidoscope of Facts is a unique collection of facts, research and interviews with different people, experts and enthusiasts.
Just imagine, the team that prepares Kaleidoscope of Facts is comprised of volunteers from all over the world who speak many different languages of the world. Therefore, we are working with lots of information, lots of material that we have to work through, read and put together according to one single goal that is always set at the start of the making of the Kaleidoscope of Facts.
This is a research project, and it's interesting. It's interesting to work on it. It's exciting to look for information. It is fascinating to translate it, because you touch upon the truth. The truth that people, a team of analysts, have verified it all 1,000 times. I mean, this is really verified information that you can trust. and you can verify it yourself from open sources.
And this really truly shows how much truth can motivate people to go further and beyond their limits and to contribute their time and attention in order to find the truth and to spread it among the people. So more and more people are aware about the true knowledge.
I realized this very moment has come. The darkest time is over, and all the truth has been revealed.
Unity is power, and united we people can accomplish truly anything.
This is the phenomenon of our unity in the kaleidoscope of facts. Just look for yourself at how many people are on the Zoom and how we unite. What unites us is this very willingness to be together and to change the world. So friends, as Igor Mikhailovich said, let's love each other and respect each other. And let's unite. Thank you.
The phenomenon of unity is something that I have never experienced in my short life. So much love, so much support, so much candor, and so much courage in presenting the truth and facts nowadays can only be described as phenomenal.
It's impossible to describe the phenomenon of this project in words. Guys, join in so that you yourself would feel this tremendous love and support.
Friends, join the project and let's bring truth back to all of humanity together.
Спасибо большое. Thank you so much. Спасибо большое.
Дякую.
Amazing, guys.
Спасибо большое команде. Спасибо всем.
Ďakujeme všetkým našim účastníkom.
Thank you to all our participants for such inspiring, beautiful, and joyful words. Friends, you are a great inspiration, and after watching this video, the desire to act is even greater. This is the real example of unity in action, and this is the case in all the projects of Allatra International Public Movement. We have a huge number of projects that people from all over the world are engaged in. Here are some of them. The videos with participation of Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, the Creative Society, Climate Crisis, the Universal Grain, the Diamond of the Prophet Muhammad, Islam, Religion of Love, Psychology, Discovering the Truth, Allatra Physics, Shadow Control, Health Navigator, Kaleidoscope of Facts, and many more. Yes, Monica, there are indeed many projects, and everyone can take part in a project they like. Behind every project, there are a lot of hard work of many people. We have a technical support team, a team of streamers, designers, a team of engaged in searching for information, writing scripts for videos, video shooting, video editing, and team of translators which provide translations and interpretations, voiceovers, simultaneous interpretations, communicating with scientists, interviewing them, conducting social surveys. And I'd like to emphasize that people participate in the projects in their free time. Each of us has learned many new skills. Yes, let me thank everyone involved in this Kaleidoscope of Facts, our distinguished speakers and all those who stayed behind the scenes. Thank you to our friends who wrote the script, who held interviews. Thank you to the technical support team. Thank you to all the translators, and thank you to everyone who contributed to today's episode. Today's broadcast is translated into 17 languages and is organized thanks to volunteers from all over the world. We in Slovakia and in Czech Republic say the strength is in unity, and this is indeed true. If we all unite, we will become the force which cannot be stopped. We are all human beings, and we have one place to live, the earth, one nationality, humankind, and one value, life, thanks to which we can make the most of our great potential and realize our life purpose. Only together can we change the vector of society. Thank you very much to everyone. Friends, our Kaleidoscope of Facts is coming to a closure. I believe we have answered your questions about what unity is. Please, if you have any questions, observations, ideas, write to us in the comments below this video or send us an email to info@allatra.tv. At the end of each video, Igor Mikhailovich speaks these words: love each other. This is the most important thing. And these words became the inspiration for today's Kaleidoscope of Facts, to be devoted to the topic of unity, because there is an understanding of the importance of these very words. All of humanity is now faced with one goal: to survive, and we can only survive when we unite and begin to love one another. Let us watch the closing video with the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
But even in case of the most positive outcome indeed, in just a little while, the time of the crossroads ends, and if humanity chooses the path of spiritual development, the path of unity, if everyone who is alive at least a little bit stops being silent and unite, even then we won't be able to avoid the most of the disasters that are already chartered, so to say. But we'll be able to survive. However, we'll be able to survive only together.
As it is said in the book Allatra, the knowledge has been given to a person, and his choice and action depend only on him. And changes in the whole global society depend on actions of every person. For all living people, this is really the last remaining chance to spiritually save themselves and the civilization.